This is the September 5th, 2018 meeting of the Shelburne Development Review Board. Welcome. First thing on our agenda is public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to make a comment now on any matter that's not on the agenda, now is the time. Hello. So you should probably raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. I think I have to do that with everything. So, do you hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you're about to give and the matter under consideration will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Oh, yes.
Good. Thank you.
I hate pain. My name is Linda Lavalette, and I've lived in Shelburne since 1972. Seen a lot of things change. What I'd like to get across tonight is, and I know your role as the design review board is to look at the rules and see, what's what, but it's dismaying to me that so many of your agenda items are subdivisions. When Shelburne is at a tipping point where we can either look like our neighbors to the north, Burlington and South Burlington, or we can look more like our neighbors to the south, Charlotte and Ferrisburg. And I would much prefer the green and open spaces and grass of our southern neighbors to the concrete and houses and noise and traffic and lack of elbow room of our neighbors to the north. And with Lake Champlain in the news being polluted, and I can attest to the fact that it has been and is, when you're out there fishing and you see sewage floating by, and anyone in Shelburne that's ever gone down Harbor Road on a summer's day can attest to that, or go by Crown Road, you can attest to the fact that our sewage treatment plants aren't smelling very well. Every new subdivision that you allow, just for the sake of it being allowed, is allowing more water runoff, more sewage that we can't handle, more pollution in the lake, more traffic. If you look at the pros and cons of allowing subdivisions, who wins? I can think of the developers. They're in it for the money. I'm looking at the town. Does the town win? No, I can't see that the town wins. The majority of subdivisions are taking a single lot and increasing the number of households on it, and the neighbors don't gain. The water system doesn't gain. The lake is losing. We've got some massive problems in our future with septic, waste treatment, water treatment. We're all going to have to pay a lot of money to get it clean. So why? How does it make sense to allow subdivisions that are going to increase the negative impacts when if we stopped and held until the problems were solved, then you could think in a more green way about allowing subdivisions.
Right.
And that's my point. And I'm hoping that you'll think about it. Just because a subdivision may meet the requirements, if it's offensive to the neighborhood, if it doesn't fit, or if it doesn't have enough positive to outweigh the negative, and there are other negatives I haven't listed, not everyone wants to have neighbors that close, then you can vote no.
So I appreciate you coming and putting that to us, and we're always happy to hear from people, obviously. But I do, at least from my perspective, and I appreciate what you're saying, but we do have very specific rules, and in terms of what comes before us, maybe it's a matter for the Planning Commission as well.
I've been there.
Right.
I'll be back there.
Yep.
But I'm here
So I
tonight for
appreciate
something
that.
other, but I wanted to make a statement in general,
Yeah.
kind of get you to think about this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
If we might have comments or questions on something later that is on the agenda, do you need to know that now, or?
Once the item comes up, then anybody who wants to weigh on it will be sworn in at that
One
time.
other thing, I'm hard of hearing, I do have hearing aids, but these rooms swallow it. I know there are others here who are hard of hearing.
Yeah.
So if you can all kind of speak up
that, we could start with that, I suppose, if we could close the door, thank you. It's not usually too bad with noise from there, but I think there's another meeting going on. Okay. Any other public comment? Nobody's inspired by... Okay, so then we'll move on to item number... No, I will first mention, are any members of the board have any recusals that they need to... Any items on the agenda that they need to recuse themselves from? Nope. Okay. Item number 3 then is approval of minutes. We're turning first to the August 13th, 2018 minutes of the site visit. Does anybody have any comments or amendments? Nope. So then, hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the August 13, 2018 minutes as written.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Ian. All those in favour? Aye.
I'll abstain.
Turning to the minutes of the August 15th, 2018 meeting. Any comments on those minutes? No? Okay, so then I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 15th, 2018 meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay. So despite our public comment, we are still slightly ahead, but we will turn to the item number 4 on the agenda is application SUB 18-02. Do we have here the people who are going to talk to us about this? It looks like it, yes. So then this is an application by Sterling Land Company for a sketch plan review of a proposed 3-lot subdivision. The property is at 82 Mount Philo Road and is located in the residential district and the Stormwater Overlay District. And this is the application that was continued for us to do our site visit. Okay. So if you want to, I don't know, what people want another overview, or do we need any more input from the applicant? I mean, DRB members have questions or comments to start with, given Ravi's.
What did our fire chief say specifically?
So I do actually have comments from our fire chief. He provided me formalized comments yesterday, and I was not able to include it in your packets. So I'll pass that around. One suggestion that I do have, based on my understanding, staff's understanding of this letter, is for potential draft motions and conditions. One potential condition should be that final plans should include or shall include a 22-foot driveway, which is an 18-foot pavement width with 2 feet shoulders on each side, as well as a clear indication of 14-foot high clearance for fire access.
14-foot high, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
What's the width of the driveway?
22 feet in total, 18 feet wide pavement, and 2-foot wide shoulders.
Have you seen the comments from the fire chief?
Andy Rowe with Lammer and Dickinson. We have not. We met with the fire chief, so we know what
What his
the substance of
were?
his comments were, and that was one of the items that we wanted to discuss with the board tonight.
Okay. So anybody who is going to speak to this application, if you could please stand and raise your right hands, and I'll swear everybody in at the same time. Do you all hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, so you did meet with the fire chief. Does that summary from Ravi accurately reflect your understanding of the discussion?
Yes, it does. We would like to discuss with the board accommodating the same width, but with a narrower, improved surface, whether it be gravel or pavement, in order to reduce the impervious surface and maintain the character of the area. essentially have this look more like a driveway or a shared driveway and less like a lane or a private street. The 18-foot width just is quite wide to serve 1 or 2 homes. I do understand where the emergency services folks are coming from, but we'd like to provide that same width by reducing the width of the travel lane and increasing the width of the shoulders on either side, providing a few inches of topsoil over the top of them so that we can have a little bit more green space, a little bit less impervious surface.
What would the shoulders, the construction? I would assume the construction would be such that it'll support all the necessary emergency hardware going down.
Correct. It'd be the same subbase is underneath the travel lane, but you could have 2 to 3 inches of topsoil on
Okay.
top. If there was a heavy piece of equipment sitting on top, you might have 2 or 3 inches of mud, depending on the conditions, but there would be a solid base underneath that. It would just be the aesthetic appearance on the surface of having that green space as opposed to a impervious surface of gravel or pavement.
What width are you recommending?
We'd like to see 12 or 14, something that's a little more in keeping with a typical driveway width.
The letter indicated that the roadway would need to be maintained, so if it's topsoil and other, how would you be able to maintain that year-round?
I
The
think
same
what they
as
might be,
a driveway?
so it would be maintained year-round. I think what they're probably getting at is plowing that extra width. And, you know, that would be an issue, I think, whether it was 22 feet wide or regardless of the width of the shoulders, they would need to be cleared in order to maintain the access. So it's an issue of plowing a little bit wider on the shoulders and maintaining that year-round, as they had commented. I think there was also a comment in there regarding the or at least we discussed with the fire department, providing a turnaround. Again, we'd like the ability we can provide that geometry. We'd like the ability to incorporate some, gravel surface in that area as well. One of the comments from Rescue was providing a greater radius point at the point where the driveway splits between the 2 homes, and between accommodating the turnaround for the fire department, we can easily accommodate the radius that Rescue is asking for.
So that would be something wider at the moment. What I'm looking at is the sketch, I suppose. But something wider at that intersection where the 2 driveways split off.
Right, so I think Rescue was, assuming that things would more or less stay as is, and that the point where it splits, that we would have a larger radius turn in there in order to accommodate them backing up and making that turn if they had to go to the farthest lot. What the fire department has asked is to make that such that they could do basically a 3-point turnaround there, so that if they drove in, they could back out using the split at the 2 driveways in order to make that turnaround. So we would, again, widen out the subbase there in order to accommodate the geometry that we need, but we'd like to grass some of that gravel shoulder, provide the subbase, but bring in the traveled way so that it's not an area that has a permanent impervious surface for something that would only be used on occasion of emergency vehicles being there.
I guess, quite frankly, I'd be a little skeptical of overruling the fire chief's recommendation, and even though you're saying you don't see it being used that much for an emergency vehicle, but when you need to use it, you need to use it. If this was for one house, then I'd say, okay, yeah, driveway, but we're talking about more than one house, so where does that line come as far as serving multiple units and with the roadway to access it? So I guess that's my opinion.
I'd like to also bring up that under town subdivision regulations, section 900 subpoint 8 specifically states that all streets and roads shall be constructed to meet the town of Shelburne public works specifications. Streets and roads shall be paved unless this requirement is specifically waived by the Development Review Board. upon determination that paving is not justified, streets and roads shall be so located to facilitate fire protection and coordinated so as to compose a convenient system properly related to the plan.
So essentially, you have to persuade us that paving is not justified, I suppose, right? I think it's justified.
All right, I mean, I'm with him unless, we put it back in front of the fire department
And say,
and they okay it. I mean, I would be loath to waive that.
At this point, this is sketch plan, so I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
that's a
digging
good point.
pretty deep here for
Yeah.
sketch plans.
Yeah.
so-
But it's a big change, from what was here to where we're going now, so that's good.
We can go back and discuss this again with Wide and Shoulders with the fire department and try to reach a happy medium if that's the direction the board's giving us.
I think
Yeah.
that,
I guess-
you're getting the
I
message
mean,
that
there's,
we're,
again, a couple of different things I think we're talking about. One here is the width of the improved surface, and then what is the improved surface? Is it gravel or pavement? And we haven't talked about the gravel or pavement issue before. I mean, I'm not sure that again, with it being sketch plan, the applicant hasn't really decided one way or the other. We'd like the flexibility. If the board feels strongly one way or the other, I guess we'd like to know that so we can come back prepared at final.
Yeah, I think we just need to see that the access is there and, endorsed by the fire chief.
Right, and we can certainly go back and discuss the width and
Yep.
improve shoulders with them and,
So is the 22-foot width the whole way? Or is it just where the truck would be stopping for?
I think it would probably be past up to and including the split. It would need to accommodate the turnaround, that would be incorporated into the split in the driveway, and beyond that, I think they would probably be fine with narrowing it as long as it's a straight shot to the house from there. But we can confirm that as well.
So we're talking really 22 feet of impervious surface, of which some of it has 2 inches of dirt on top. Pretty much is what it comes down to.
Well, but they're saying the shoulder has to be cleared in the winter, so.
That makes it even worse. Okay.
Yeah, so it's paved 22 feet. Gravel or.
Gravel, yeah, something nice, right.
I mean, I think that letter said it has to be maintained, so.
So the message here that you're gonna, at least the field is 22 feet versus the 12 feet that you have on the plans.
It just seems like if the drive going up the side, I mean, the house in front is served from Mount Philo Road, I would
Correct,
assume.
and that will remain.
So I'm not sure I
unchanged.
understand why that whole stretch would have to be 22 feet up the side of that house.
From Mount Philo Road up to the split?
Yeah, yeah.
The way that John and Jerry explained it to us was they may potentially need to run 2 pieces of equipment past one another.
Okay.
And that's the width that they're looking for, even though there is a hydrant one property down on the property line on the same side of the street.
All right. Freeway.
That was why we wanted to come to the board to discuss the width, because we're not a fan of that extra width and the appearance that it will create either.
Yeah, I think it'll be wider than Mount Philo.
this seemed excessive.
Is there a copy of that memo that we can, sorry,
There's only,
we haven't seen that, just so that the applicant can read through it?
So would it be worth considering
went that way.
a U loop all the way through, so that, would they allow you to keep it narrower if there was another way into the site? Could we have 2 12-foot and then have it widen out behind the house?
Basically maintain the existing gravel drive that's there and run a loop all the way through. We could consider that in terms of total impervious area. I'm not sure as that would be much of a reduction.
I just think from an appearance standpoint, instead of 22 feet running up the side of a house, having 2 12-foots off of Mount Philo, and then whatever it does in back,
Yeah.
it does.
That accomplishes what,
It seems
Fire
like it
chief
would
would
accomplish
want,
what they want if their concern is 2 vehicles passing each other.
right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd say is look at options,
Yeah.
and whatever you come back with that's endorsed by the chief, then we would certainly entertain.
That's,
you guys can keep that copy.
Okay. Other questions other than the fire comments? Staff recommendations are extensive in terms of our conditions.
And I know that when we were out there at the site, there was a lot of conversation about one home versus two dwellings, and is that still, have you entertained any
The
ideas about
application has
that?
not changed, no.
I'd like to deliberate afterwards on this.
Okay. So that means, well, okay. You just want to continue it then, so that we have a chance to,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think we had a chance to talk about it as a group.
No, we haven't. That's true. Perhaps if there's anybody else in the audience who wants to offer comments or, yep. And you were previously sworn in, so we don't have to go through that again.
And I won't fib.
Okay, just state your name again.
My name is Linda Lavalette. And my family's homestead happens to be right beside this proposed subdivision. And, you know, you're talking about, you know, a 22-foot wide access to get out back for safety. I understand that. We can't have people burning up in homes. But to put two family dwellings on the back half of a lot so close to neighbors that aren't used to having sounds and interruptions on the back part of our properties, and then have a loop around the driveway, you know, you're talking increased noise. And you know, those of you that went to the site, it's on a pretty steep grade. My property's also on a pretty steep grade, and when it rains, it washes out my gravel driveway, and I have to go scoop it out of the road. So, you know, one house would be so much better than two for the character of the neighborhood and for the neighbors, the immediate neighbors on both sides who are being represented here tonight, even though I may be the only one talking on their behalf. Two houses is a big intrusion on your backyard. It's a lot. You know, you can't control who's going to live there, so they could have dogs, they could have yappers, you know, they could have noisy cars. You know, you're used to having traffic sounds in the front of your house on Mount Philo, but to have it coming from the back of your yard that close, two houses that close to the line, drainage is going to be an issue. I know when they put a development behind my house, I get all the water now. That's just how it goes, the easiest way out. And when they build up and put a building, it's going to run downhill. So it's going to be running through the properties next door, or it's going to be washing out their road, or it's going to be going downhill for certain. That site isn't really suited for two houses. And it really doesn't fit in with the character of that neighborhood. So you have neighbors on both sides that oppose two houses because of the proximity, because of the disruption of the peace and tranquility that we have now in our backyards will be gone. And even if you put a fence, which would be really nice to have a full 22-foot fence, you can't stop noise. And so I wanted to make those points.
Right, yep, and we definitely hear you on that. What we've been sorry. I was just going to say what we've been pointed to is growth area 2 as part of that area falls into growth area 2 in the Shelburne Comprehensive Plan. And that's what we'll have to consider and that provides for the development of a modest density neighborhood. And so that's the question of,
According to the people that are making money on the project.
well, that's, yeah.
Well, I think we also have the ability to make a judgment upon, does this fit with the character
Right.
of the neighborhood? So that's certainly a criteria that we'll be looking at.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience who wants to make any comments? We did not swear you in, so yes, raise your right hand. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under
Yes,
the
I do.
pains and penalties of perjury? Just let me finish.
Now, on the 13th meeting, you were all there. Do you think 2 houses could fit there? I certainly don't. Because I don't see how any of you can. And if you can see 2 houses fit there, you ought to all resign. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Can you raise your hand, right hand, and we'll swear you in. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you're about to give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Ramona Muzzy, the neighbor on the other side.
Yep.
And suddenly, this has become something that is not in keeping with the character of the area. I mean, there was a driveway. Now you're gonna have a paved street. I think it's gonna change the whole concept of the area, how it looks, the concept of this quiet neighborhood, whatever is happening back. It's just that the idea of basically a street, the pavement, the way they're describing it, would this still be necessary if they had, like one house? Would you still have to have this much? What's the trade-off here? Because, it's like one thing to have a driveway beside your driveway. And I'm sure there will be water running between the 2 driveways because that happens, especially if they take the trees out. There's going to be, it's inevitable that there will be more runoff. So there's that to consider too. And just the idea of a street, it just takes away from the residential as far as I'm concerned. It changes the look and the concept of our area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public before we maybe hear from the applicant again? No? Okay. Don't know if you wanted to say anything else or not.
I guess with our first hearing, we had a number of board members who weren't present. They were present for the site visit. They're present tonight. We'd be happy to have a dialogue with the board as far as character of the area. There was some discussion at the site visit. There's been a couple of exhibits submitted with similar lots that have been created in the area. Ravi has provided some additional information in the staff report in terms of growth area 2, the purpose of the residential zoning district, the dimensional requirements of this district. I mean, we've, I think, entered sufficient information into the record. We'd be happy to have a dialogue with the board, if that's the board's pleasure, or take questions from the board.
Right.
I'll just reiterate, I think, the same thing that I had said at the site visit and sort of what I was aiming for earlier. It looks to me like from the exhibits about similar similar lots and similar configurations, they all look to me like 1 home or 2 homes in the front and 1 in the back. I am having a hard time finding something that is laid out in the same manner in this same area.
Can we project the vicinity down?
Sure.
Nope. But I emailed it to you.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've got the 11 by 17s as well, if that's
I mean, if you could,
preferable.
You have already included that in the packets.
Right, I guess I was just gonna note that, I mean, there are some instances where there were 2 lots in front and 2 lots in the back. I think the lots that have been created or subdivided from lots that are originally larger are kind of all over the place. Some of them had 2 lots in the front, some had 2 in the back, some of them created 2 in the back when there was 1 or 2 or more in the front. It's really, the biggest variable is what's the original size of the lot and the dimensional requirements. And I think one of the board members had observed at the site visit that the width of these 2 lots is very similar to the lots along Maplewood or Maple Lawn in the neighborhood behind. And each of these lots do meet the dimensional requirements. I think as Ravi had noted in his staff report, the lots on the opposite side of Mount Philo Road along Bacon Drive actually are a little bit smaller. They are now in the residential district. They were originally created when they were part of the village district. But again, the lot size in the residential district in the immediate vicinity of the project really vary from 1/3 of an acre on the opposite side of the road along Bacon Drive and some of the other smaller infill lots that may have been created over the years to some larger lots. This one's on the larger end at 1.5 acres.
I think for me, it's hard to picture 2 separate structures in back. It's almost if they were a duplex and one building, it would make more sense, but I think it's weird to have that space between the buildings behind the house. You know, it's not a traditional development pattern you see.
I mean, for me, you've done a good job with your presentation exhibits. I've got what I need. I can see what's being proposed and how essentially at this point the rules have been met. But I think that we need to deliberate about things that aren't as concrete as that, like the character of what you're proposing for that neighborhood. Because that's a very important thing, at least for me. Is that really a good fit for the neighbors that are there and for Shelburne?
I think that's what it comes down to. We're just going to continue it and have a discussion.
So procedurally, how do you see this going?
I think that means that we continue it till the next meeting.
Yeah, so we can, if it's for deliberative, there's,
I think we could deliberate and come up with a recommendation, and then
Okay.
you can write it up and off you go. But not tonight, right here.
No, I understand that. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, is the meeting going to be continued? Is there going to be additional
I'm
dialogue, or
comfortable.
do you guys see closing the hearing?
Well,
And
you are still gonna have to get back with the fire department feedback, so.
But this is a
Yeah.
sketch.
Okay.
You can do that and
Okay.
still keep the ball focused down.
right, and that,
so we
I
can,
guess that was our
yes,
understanding.
you can continue this to the next meeting.
I'm
That'd be,
comfortable with the evidence presented. I don't
Right, we
hate it.
don't,
Yeah.
You good, Ian?
The next meeting is September 19th.
okay. So that would be continuing to September 19th for the next step, or just,
No, we don't have to continue it. We can close the evidence,
oh,
and then we can make, right, exactly.
So, that being said, I'm gonna make a motion to first classify this as a minor subdivision.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
And I would also make a motion to authorize, it says preparation of a final plan. Not so.
This was for minor.
Pardon me? These draft motions you have in there?
Yes,
This is not preparation of a final plan.
right.
So this is actually preliminary plan.
No, because it's because it's a minor subdivision, it does not require a
So we're
preliminary
going
plan
right to
review.
final? Well, that's right,
Yes.
I forgot about
Yep.
that. Okay.
So then
I'll still make the motion then. I'll make a motion to prepare final plan application, SUB 1802.
No.
And I'm gonna, with all of,
But if we, that's gonna wait until we deliberate.
right, with no, basically with no other conditions at this point. And we'll that'll come out in our decision. After we deliberate. We can make a motion to authorize them to prepare a final plan based on our decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, Yeah,
It's all new to me.
we can do that.
Okay.
In other words, item number 4 here, on the motion of preparation of final application, we'll put that stipulation in there. Is that what you're saying?
All kinds of stipulations. What we like, what we don't like.
Right,
Yeah.
that takes care of it.
Mm-hmm.
The result of our deliberation go there,
Yep.
Based on the conditions of our decision.
okay?
We'll condition it at our decision. That's my motion.
Okay, I will second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so what that means is you'll hear from us and then you can proceed
We
to the
haven't
next
done a
step.
minor in a long time.
Yes. So we authorize them to proceed to the next step, but in the meantime, we will meet as a board to deliberate and see what conditions we are going to put on that next step.
And who is the next step presented to? You also?
Yes. That's then their final plan application that.
I'm sorry, I don't understand this. So we're to proceed with final, but we don't know what you think.
At this point,
You will.
yes. So, but you will. So
And when will we know that, and how will we know that?
as soon as we possibly can, and by way of Ravi, communicating with Ravi, he will be in touch.
writing? Sure.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there is no discussion with us?
We've had the discussion
We did.
with you, and we are very clear on your position. We've heard from other people, and now it's up to us to go away and look at the rules and look at our thoughts and all the evidence that we've seen and come up with our decision.
Seems unique to me, but that's.
I mean, I think our alternative is that we continue your
Yeah.
sketch plan till the next meeting and you wait until then to hear from
No, we're
us.
not gonna
isn't it?
issue a decision until they're done presenting evidence. When it's all done, then we deliberate and we say, here's our written recommendation, our written ruling. Unless they're willing to reopen it with new evidence. But I think as a board, we were comfortable with what we saw, unless there's someone that is interested in some other things. I mean, am I getting it right?
Right, we only continue if we need more evidence,
Right,
correct?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it stands. So we'll issue a decision as soon as we can. That's what it comes down to. And then you can prepare your final application based on that.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Right. So then we'll move on to item 5 on the agenda. This is application BLA 18-02. It's an application by Civil Engineering Associates on behalf of Sledrunner Properties LLC for a boundary line adjustment to merge two adjacent parcels. The property is at 151 Ordway Shore Road and is located in the Rural District, the Lakeshore Overlay District, and the Floodplain and Watercourse Overlay District. Okay, is there anybody here to speak to this for us? Raise your right hand. So do you hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. So I guess just an overview of
Yeah,
what
so
you're doing.
my name's Chris Gallipo, and I'm with Civil Engineering Associates, and we are here representing Tom Gauntlet with Sledrunner Properties LLC. I'm not sure, I think probably you guys have already looked at the plans, but it's a pretty straightforward project. Basically, it's one owner that owns two adjacent parcels. One of the parcels is 1.64 acres, the other one is 2.57. And what they would like to do is dissolve the line in between the two parcels and make one larger 4.21 acre parcel. So again, it's one owner. The setbacks and everything would either be remaining the same or becoming larger as a result of this. So the lot would be, it's not becoming any more non-conforming. It would be likely becoming more conforming. So it's a straightforward project. I don't know if you want to put it up on the screen I also brought a plan if there's any questions, or I think the staff report is pretty clear. There's really, I think staff sees it as a boundary line adjustment with no suggestions, modifications, or conditions.
Yeah, that seems fairly straightforward, Robbie.
Staff side is very straightforward.
Yeah. Any board members with questions?
No, I don't.
Anybody in the audience who would like to make any comment? No? Okay, so no questions? Okay, so, well, then, I think it's fairly straightforward. I will make a motion to finalize the record for application BLA 18-02. And a second motion to close with an indication of approval. So, approving the boundary line adjustment application BLA 18-02 for the property located at 151 Ordway Shore Road, as depicted on the boundary line adjustment plat, with the condition that the Mylar shall be recorded within 180 days of approval. Seconded by Lisa, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Okay, so item number 6 on the agenda is application SUB 17-03. This is an application by Alan Kirkpatrick for final plan review of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. The property is at 6747 Spear Street and is located in the residential district and the Stormwater Overlay District.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Comment coming in from some of the vast viewing audience is that the audio is really low. Just want to pass that out there.
Okay. Is there somebody in the audience to speak to this? Okay. I think I just swore you in,
Okay.
so you're okay. Well, don't have to go through it
Okay,
again.
let's do it again. Again, I'm Chris Gallup with Civil Engineering. The plans that you guys have in front of you, and I can give you a basic overview. Alan, you wanna hold these up again? We can hold them up if you want. This is Alan Kirkpatrick, who probably should be sworn in also, who is the owner of the property.
Okay. If you're going to give evidence, I can certainly swear you in. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay.
So essentially, Alan Kirkpatrick owns a property at 6747 Spear Street. What's that? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Let me switch up, sorry.
There are two, if you want to hold one and...
Bouncing around a lot. Essentially, Alan Kirkpatrick owns a property. This project's been presented in front of you guys 2 or 3 times now over the last course of the year. But Alan owns the property at 6747 Spear Street, and essentially the goal is to subdivide off a 2-acre parcel just north of his existing residence. It's a fairly straightforward project, proposed drilled well for the new residence, and then a municipal sewer connection. The plans you have in front of you are essentially the exact same plans that you saw at preliminary phase, more or less, other than being stamped final now. So I'm not sure if I can give you additional details, or maybe we should jump into the staff report and talk about some of the items that we talked about preliminary phase and some of the new items that have been popped up recently as part of the final plan review. There was also, I'm not sure if it was distributed today and you guys had a chance to review it, but Norm Smith, who is Alan's attorney, who was also the attorney for Oda Hubbard and the Mac Farm and Copshey parcel, provided 2 different memos to the town today in response to the staff report that we received on Friday. So, and we apologize for the late, response to that, but with the holiday weekend and not getting the staff report till Friday, that's just the way it worked out. And we fully understand if it makes sense to continue the hearing 2 weeks, if you guys want more time. I don't know what's better, we can go through the staff report in the order, or I can just give you an overview of Norm's memos. But the 2 items that Norm,
So before you continue, Chris,
Yep.
the 2 memos that the applicant is speaking about, staff did received them earlier this afternoon. Because of how short notice it was, because it is a lawyer's argument and your counsel was not available to appear today, that staff had suggested and the applicant had acknowledged that it would be best to continue this application until all parties are present for this application. And that for today, I had notified Alan and Chris that that today should be solely focused on evidence and should not discuss the paths, because the pedestrian paths it was a concern of one of the memos of the applicant's counsel, as well as a sewer line agreement that was conditioned previously at sketch plan and preliminary plan and has been noted in the staff report. So anything that is outside of those two issues that is new evidence, staff suggests that the applicant presents those to the DRB and hears the rest of the application at a later time when all parties of the applicant are present.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I mean, I think that's fine. The direction we had from Alan's attorney is that we absolutely can talk about the path, just in what we've talked about with staff since the last meeting. I don't know why we can't talk about what's been discussed with staff, so that's new to me. In regards to sewer, we're happy to discuss it. Like I said, if it makes sense to continue it, we have absolutely no problems with that. We also would, in response to Norm, the attorney, just suggested that maybe if we do continue it, maybe a site visit would be warranted. And actually, Alan would be very much in favor of you guys just coming out, seeing his lot. The Natural Resource Committee was out there earlier when they weighed in on the screening, and we just saw it in response to the path. It might be good to see it if you have an interest.
Site visit?
But personally, I do have an interest,
Yeah,
but I'd like to
yeah.
understand the direction the town is recommending to the applicant, so that can all be incorporated into thoughts when I do get to do a site
Yeah.
visit. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, in regards to the path, the staff was unsure of what would be considered, I guess, hearsay and what would be considered strictly from your background from an engineering perspective, and that's why staff was suggesting that listening to hearing the entirety about the pedestrian path would be better suited for when the applicant's counsel is present.
I think if I can speak, we're happy just to provide some of the information we have, irregardless of what Alan's attorneys provided, just an overview of what we talked about since the last meeting and touch on the sewer, the path, and the remaining items. I mean, I think it would help before the site visit, and then if you guys ask us to gather any more information before the next meeting, we have time to do that.
I mean, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Is it?
Okay with it, yeah.
We just have to be careful because our rules of evidence tell us we have to be able to cross-examine the people that are giving evidence. So if this is coming from their attorney, we can't really
Yeah.
cross-examine them, right? But if he's got a general
So-
overview of what they're planning to do,
I mean,
I wouldn't even talk
mean,
about the attorney's memo.
if you start getting in, stay away from the arguments that the attorney's
Yeah,
bringing to
so
the
maybe
table.
just
I'd
some-
say you're safe.
yeah, so maybe just
My opinion.
information about
Yeah, that's
what
it.
they've discovered about on the.
Yeah, so
the
I'll start
paths
with
and
I'll start with the sewer.
Sewer.
Originally, Chris Robinson had flagged that it's a private line and that he has no issues with the connection that we're proposing, but he wanted to make sure that there was an agreement or cost sharing for Alan to essentially connect to his own line. So Norm Smith actually looked into it, provided an initial memo to you guys.
You might be moving towards the hearsay because these are the contents of one of the memos.
You're getting into the contents of his memos, Chris, so.
For Chris Robinson's memo?
No, your
Norm's,
counsel's.
Your counsel.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it makes more sense to just continue the whole thing and then everything can be. And, yeah, and there's no sort of stepping around anything.
So can we then, I guess, if we skip the easement, I mean, like I said, I just talked to Chris Robinson about an hour ago, and he actually asked me to convey this information to you, so I don't understand how that's hearsay with Norm Smith, but that's fine. In regards to the path, could we, if we're gonna continue it, could we at least schedule a site visit in advance of whenever the continued meeting would be? So so Alan can at least explain to you his concerns about the cost of the path impacting and being so severe that he can't move forward with the project. So the path is at a price that he can't, basically the project probably can't move forward if he has to construct this path. With that said, the construction of the path also goes against what the Natural Resource Committee asked for with maintaining the trees. So we're kind of, if we satisfy the path committee, we're going against the Natural Resource Committee, and we're just trying to, Alan's just trying to make this subdivision work, and he can't, you know, it's hard when you have different departments arguing. So we just thought that maybe having a site visit, if someone from the path committee would like to attend that, that would be great. Paul Goodrich has told both Alan and I in person, he would like to attend the meeting. Chris Robinson, who also deals with stormwater, would be willing to add his 2 cents. So if we could schedule a site visit, that would be great. Since the last meeting, we did meet with Ravi and Paul Goodrich at the site, and Paul did indicate to Ravi his opinion on the path.
Okay. So then, I mean, yeah, site visit probably.
Site visit definitely, but
Yeah.
I need to know what I'm looking at when I go to the site.
So you're saying what, we need to have the site visit after they next come back?
I don't know, yeah, because I drive by it like a couple times a week. Okay, I don't know what I'd like to know what I'm supposed to be looking at.
Can I?
Site visit? I mean,
Yeah.
we have all
Why,
parties present?
what's wrong with me indicating what Alan would like to do and what he sees would work for him, which is consistent with what we talked about at the last meeting, independent of Norm's memo? So essentially, the way the bylaws are, you guys are allowed to approve an alternate facility in lieu of a path. What Alan feels is that the town spent a considerable amount of money widening both shoulders of Spear Street from essentially Irish Hill Road, I believe, all the way to the South Burlington line. In this instance, given the rock, if you look at it, there's actually like a rock stone wall. It would require the removal of all the rock, significant trees, screening, and blasting probably for the sidewalk. So Alan would like to request that the widened shoulder be approved as the alternate facility in this location, with the understanding that it's a path to nowhere, and that would be his proposal moving forward. The shoulder there, it varies. It's probably 6 to 8 feet wide. Portions of it are straight, portions are not, but the section in front of Alan's house is actually fairly wide. And that's why we thought meeting on the site would be beneficial to everybody.
In addition to that, could you show where the right-of-way ends for the road?
We can stake out whatever you would like.
Okay.
If there's a
Okay.
there's a Spear Street in that location, 66 feet, so we can stake out both sides so we can look at that. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That would be helpful. Okay.
When?
And again, a lot of it just comes to there's 700 feet of frontage.
Yeah.
He's doing a single family residence on the north lot. It's only 2 acres. And when you start looking at the cost there, it's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
yeah, I hear you on that.
Regarding the when, I think Chris had mentioned certain parties that might provide further insight into your understanding of putting the sidewalk in, because you mentioned Paul Goodrich. And so, I mean, I think that those could be helpful for your understanding of their project. I'd also like to add that if there are particular interested parties that could provide insight, that there is someone from either the PATS committee or someone that's a transportation planner of that background to provide further insight into not just the highway side, which is Paul Goodrich, but also the sidewalk side.
Yep, helpful. Okay, so when? Like,
And can I
so
just,
an
so for
evening-
clarification, I mean, if we can't, if there's a letter that goes to the board and it talks about a staff member, is that not, so like if we want to talk about our discussions with Paul Goodrich, if that's hearsay, do we have to bring Paul to the meetings now? So do we have to bring Paul, Chris Robinson, Rick Lewis and all them to these meetings if we can't discuss a memo that was provided to the town? How does that work?
I think today we didn't have the memo in front of us.
So if you had
it's
had the
just-
memo
you
in
can't
front of
come
you,
and
then we
just
could discuss
tell
it.
us. Yeah.
We'd be accepting it into evidence.
Right. So we can't just you can't just sort of stand there and tell us, sort of for the truth of it, as it were, what Paul Goodrich told you, because this, we have to on the record.
So
has to
even
be-
though we personally met with Paul Goodrich,
Right.
and Ravi was there, we
Right.
can't discuss that because Norm mentioned a different conversation with Paul Goodrich at a different time.
No, just because on everything that's on the record as evidence, there has to be a certain standard met, and you're presenting it to us as evidence that we have that that we're to rely on. So if we have the written memo in front of us, then that's one thing, but we can't just have you talking
Speaking on
about
behalf of
what
someone
he
else.
said to you and us take it as truth on the record in the matter. Because it's hearsay, yeah. So you can't,
Next time you have a couple hours, read our rules of evidence.
Welcome to On the Record.
No, I know it. No, I'm fully familiar with that, but we've had memos from the town where we've talked about it. And this just seems a little bit different. If Norm and I meet with a town employee and he tells us something, I don't see why we can't discuss our meeting, but that's,
Follow up with a memo.
this is,
Reference to.
yeah.
okay.
So if we had the memo. I
Oh,
don't
we
think
can,
do.
we'll talk, we'll get Paul here.
Yeah, that's okay.
Even better.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so if we can schedule a site visit and continue it, that would be excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
And if it works, Norm is available 2 weeks from tonight. I don't know if that agenda's full or not, but Norm did tell us he was free. The problem Norm has is he's on the board in Ferrisburg, and so it's conflicting time with your meeting. So that's why he couldn't be here tonight.
Right.
In terms of scheduling and timing, the next meeting is fine. In terms of what is on the
Right.
agenda, so
Okay.
It's the 19th.
that is September 19th.
Okay.
Could we do a site visit right before
So-
the meeting?
Let's do, about the Monday before, it's even the same sort of time that we did the last one, like 6 o'clock,
Do we want to
that
do
would
it
be the
before the
17th,
meeting or separate?
right before, separate.
If it's Monday or Tuesday, I can't make it. That's fine.
Thursday, the Thursday before, so we could, then we're going to run into,
I can't do the 13th.
how much time do we need? Shall we try and do it right before the meeting?
I think that makes sense.
We can do it.
Like
19th?
6 o'clock on the 19th?
Okay.
6 o'clock gives us enough time.
I think so, I mean,
Yeah.
we did spend probably an hour and a half out there with Ravi and Paul, but I think we could probably
Okay.
squeeze it into half an hour.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah, that's
half an hour
fine.
and then get
Yep.
back here.
Okay.
And you guys want we'll stake out the right-of-way there? So we'll stake out the right-of-way. Is there anything else you want to see? I mean, do you guys want to see the house location? Do you want to see anything else while you're there that you'd have questions about? We can walk over the hill and check out the sewer if you guys want, whatever you, because that's,
Are you going to stick out the corners of the property line along the road?
we will,
Okay.
yes. Yep, yeah, we'll put several flags in the right-of-way, and that way we can walk the whole 700 feet,
Great.
or 650.
So it's number 6747. Just pour in the driveway, there's plenty of parking.
Okay.
So we're talking about on the 19th.
Yes,
At 6 o'clock. Is that what we said?
yes.
Okay.
We said 6 o'clock on the
Yes,
19th.
6 p.m. on the 19th.
That works for you, right?
And,
Sounds good.
yeah, I'm sure. Sure, it'll be fine. I have a feeling I have something on the 19th, but it's probably earlier in the day.
Make it work, I guess.
So,
So I'll try and make it work.
yeah. Okay, so I better make a motion to continue application SUB 17-03 to a site, do I continue it to the site visit? I was forgetting between times.
September 19th.
Right, well, it's continued to September 19th to the site visit and then the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Can I have a second,
Second.
please? Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. All right, so we'll see you on the 19th. Thank you. Okay, well, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is application SUB 17-04. This is an application by Civil Engineering Associates on behalf of David Farrington for final plan review of a proposed 4-lot subdivision. The property is at 4788 Spear Street and is located in the residential district, the Stormwater Overlay District, and a portion of the Floodplain and Watercourse Overlay District. have
again.
back again.
You guys want to? There's a group of us here as well.
Okay. So anybody who's going to give evidence should be sworn in. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
So I can give you a quick overview and then we can jump into the staff report. Essentially, this is a subdivision of Dave Farrington's property at 4788 Spear Street. The property involves David Sr.'s existing residence and then the buildings for Farrington Construction out back. Essentially, we're proposing a 4-lot subdivision, but one of the lots will remain open as part of this project. We have indicated that might be reserved for future development in the future, but there's nothing proposed now. So proposed lot 1 would be 2.9 acres, and that would contain David Sr.'s residence right now. Proposed lot 2 is the 16-acre parcel that will, there's no development proposed at this time. It's reserved for future development. Proposed lot 3 will be a 2.7 acre parcel around the Farrington Construction building and garage. And then proposed lot 4 basically involves the only new construction. That's a 2.0 acre parcel, and there will be a single family residence proposed on that parcel. When we originally had been in front of you last time, we were proposing on-site sewer and on-site water, a drilled well. We had met with Chris Robinson. There is a memo that you guys were provided, I understand, from Ravi at the earlier meetings, but that Chris Robinson is in agreement that municipal sewer for one residence is not warranted going underneath an impaired brook with a force main. So he's okay with the on-site sewer. The drilled well, there was a moratorium on capacity in Spear Street, and so the one way that we could move forward with the project was to show a drilled well. We could not connect to municipal water. My understanding is that Lee has now signed the paperwork with South Burlington, and so we could have municipal water at these parcels. Ravi has suggested that municipal would be warranted. We would be happy with the condition that we make a municipal connection, but it's up to you guys what you want to do with that. If you want, maybe we go through the staff report. Essentially, the application and plans are the same that you guys saw at sketch and preliminary. There's a couple new comments in the staff report, some of which the owner is comfortable with, and some of which the owner would like to discuss with you guys on those items. The first one that kind of jumps out at us is the path again that runs along the side of the road. Again, David Sr. provided testimony at the last meeting. I think we kind of got the feeling that the widened shoulder, seeing that was a investment from Irish Hill Road to South Burlington, that could be construed as the alternate facility. But again, we'd like to discuss that further. I know there was a meeting where the Shelburne Pass Committee came and met with you guys at a DRB. We've watched the video. I think we emphasize, or we feel the applicant is consistent with a lot of the questions you had in regards to the cost of the path, and there's no design, and it's a path to nowhere. We've also talked to Paul Goodrich at length, which I'm happy to have Paul weigh in. He's of the same opinion that it would be much wiser for there to be, as part of the building permit process, a surcharge or a fee that goes into a general fund, and then when there's a location identified where a path could be proposed in its entirety, then that would be the preference. That also, from a maintenance standpoint, is much better. Having a path to nowhere on Spear Street, it's very difficult. So that's kind of the first item, and again, David Sr.'s here, so he's happy to talk about that later. On page 4, there's discussion about the sewer and water. Again, if it means us asking for a waiver to have on-site sewer, we're happy to do that. We thought that it had all been addressed at preliminary plan because we had Chris Robinson's blessing. Chris wrote a lengthy letter basically justifying our design. So again, if we did ask for a waiver, we certainly would seek a waiver to have on-site sewer. We don't feel it warrants for one lot to go underneath the impaired waterway. And there's excellent soils, probably the best soils we've seen in Shelburne. So that's that component. The state stormwater, again, we have no issues if there's a condition and they're just stating that we need to get verification that we do not need a state stormwater permit. That's not a problem. We'll have to get a project review sheet with the wastewater permit, so it's not a problem. There was also the whole talk about the non-conforming use on the lot, and it took, the town attorney to weigh in on that. David had provided his memo at the last meeting. Based upon the staff report, we haven't seen a memo from the town attorney, but it appears as though he's in agreement with David's attorney, and that it's not an issue to have those uses. They can't be expanded. So David did provide a memo outlining all the uses, which you guys should have received. And Ravi also verified that, so on the bottom of page 6, he indicates that even with the changes in the lot dimensions, lot 3 would still be fully complying in regards to setback. So I don't think that's an issue. The one kind of concern that, and I don't think it's a huge concern, but on the bottom of page 7, staff recommending that the applicant transitions to non-conforming use. The applicant has had Farrington Construction there for many years, which is what you guys saw in the last discussions. We even provided the original building permits. There's no intentions right now to downscale Farrington Construction. It's proposed to maintain status quo and just continue operating it the way it has been for years. So we really can't agree to transition the non-conforming into conforming use at this point. I think the next main issue, again, it talks about this path in a bunch of locations, so I'll kind of skip through that. I've got them all highlighted, there's a lot of them. The landscaping plan, again, we're proposing one single-family residence. Until we know who the purchaser of the lot and what they're going to propose there, it doesn't make sense to do a landscaping plan. Again, talking about sidewalks again and about the right-of-way. And then the first condition on page 11 talks about actually adding another sidewalk from Spear Street down to Farrington Construction. And again, David's here to provide testimony. I don't think they've ever had anybody walk to Farrington Construction. It's not really a business that people walk to. So it seems like adding a sidewalk to a business which isn't supposed to be expanding anyways because it's a non-conforming use, it just doesn't seem like that's warranted, and they'd prefer not to have to add that sidewalk. Again, we understand we can't expand the use. We're just maintaining status quo. So to add a sidewalk, trying to get additional pedestrians to walk to Farrington Construction probably doesn't make sense. And there's also the vast trail that goes through there anyways, so we have that traffic as well. I don't know, David, if you want to add anything? Or do you want to see if the board has questions?
Talk about sidewalk, see what this board's position is on the sidewalk, and then I guess that would preclude what I need to do.
Who wants to start? So, Rob, I have a question. So staff is recommending that they put a sidewalk from where to where?
Along the frontage, the current frontage, that alongside Spear Street, as well as from Spear Street to the proposed Lot 3 to promote internal pedestrian circulation and also pedestrian access from adjoining properties.
Okay, I get the Spear Street thing, but I don't understand why the town staff is suggesting they make a sidewalk within their property to get to their building just like he said. Is there any other basis behind that?
Staff thought that it was more so to promote internal pedestrian circulation within the site.
Okay.
So that way there's safe access for anyone that's walking to and from the current Farrington Construction business.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
That particular item, there is a paved
You have to-
road
you have
right
to get
now.
sworn in.
Okay, pardon me. Well, I already did. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, there is access, and
Yeah.
it's walking access, and it is a paved road for 1,000 feet already off from Spear Street. Where you would put a sidewalk and what use it would be, that portion of our project doesn't make a lot of sense. The next part is whatever you think you need to mandate based on the sidewalk reports to you and what their intentions might be in this rural area. We have some thoughts on that too, but we would like to hear
yours.
So as a board member, I don't see the need that we should tell the landowner to put a sidewalk on his own property to get from one building to another building. So I would not be in support of that in this. Ravi, please note that for future applications. Thank you.
It doesn't seem to make a lot of
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
I think the Spear Street thing, I would like to deliberate
That's-
on that one.
yeah.
Would it be, I'm just throwing this out, if you guys want to deliberate, would it be helpful to see David's site the same night that you look at the other site, or do you?
I'm,
I don't know if there's time.
I don't understand the
So
question.
the last application, they would like to go look at Alan Kirkpatrick's property.
I'm sure they've seen this if
Yeah.
you drive by 700 feet.
I've been by there
I've been every day, twice a day.
Every day.
5,000 times.
I'm good.
There's a lot of traffic there tonight, too. And the paving.
It'd be more too. I think that the staff report indicated that you may have the right to not require the path. And then it's a matter of what this master plan, I guess it isn't done yet, for the sidewalks throughout Shelburne, what they might have there versus some other solutions.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the other thing for my question is, so we
Stand by
didn't,
microphone.
sorry, we were not invited, or we didn't know about the meeting on the 14th. And it wasn't a warned meeting for our applicants to go to. But one of the things that came out of that meeting is Ravi actually sent us a letter that talked about that the PAS committee is going to work on a master plan and designate different areas where they want these paths. So this bylaw or rule could be more enforceable. So you guys, and it actually says more enforceable in the letter, so you guys would have a better direction. And so again, we've represented a lot of properties along Spear Street. One property in particular has 6,000 feet of frontage on roads. If that property came in and wanted to do a one-lot subdivision, would they have to put in 6,000 feet of sidewalk? The other questions we have is, what if you had a property that has a brook on it? Are they then required to put in a bridge and secure wetland and stream alteration permits? So it's a big pill to swallow. On the smaller lots, it seems like a no-brainer. On the huge lots, it makes sense. But on these ones where we've got 700 feet of frontage and they don't go anywhere, it's a tough pill for the client, just to pass that on.
We're kind of in limbo right now. I mean, we've been told it's not an option to not require it, and that the shoulder doesn't qualify as an alternative path. So, but we've asked them to come up with a more specific plan for dealing with Spear Street, so I have no idea how we move forward until we have.
I have an idea. Since many of us travel that road every day, would it be possible that you could put like maybe 2 stakes with a flag on that shows the right-of-way, where that is along the border, along the road? That would give us a sense, is it right there or is it right there?
Where the
Way
right-of-way
further
is.
back, or, yeah.
It's approximately 16 feet from the edge of the pavement, all the way down.
Okay.
That's the right-of-way that doesn't have pavement on it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in that 16 feet is a new water line. If you ever have to get at the water line again. So, you think of a sidewalk as maybe 5 feet off the pavement, then a 5-foot sidewalk. Well, then your sidewalk would be directly over the new water line.
Okay.
One option, as I look over all this thing, and it's my position only if you mandate we have to do something, and it is not going away, obviously we have to address it. Probably the best way would be to pave an additional 5 feet. That would be your sidewalk. It would now make the combo bike path sidewalk 10 feet wide. Wouldn't obstruct the water line to dig and make a tap. Lets the street department plow both at the same time, so he doesn't have to plow a sidewalk that's 5 feet off. So that's $18,000.
I mean, that may be an option, but it's a very difficult statute for us to really adhere to, because there's really no definition of what's meant. So I say sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, how big? Concrete, bituminous,
Right.
gravel? What if there's phone poles in the way? What if there's mailboxes? What if there's wetlands? I mean, it's really hard for us to actually say, put in a sidewalk because there's no definition of how it should be construction, where, whatever.
So regarding definitions of sidewalks, did some research. The subdivision regulations and also the zoning bylaws refer to the town public works specifications. In the town public works specifications, section 3, under sidewalks are bituminous concrete with a curb 5 feet. And another material that
What would the curb be in this case? What do you mean a curb?
So this would be town public works specifications in front of me.
No place for-
Yeah.
Part of that
Yeah.
is our subdivision regulations are written,
If you had a sidewalk,
if we're
you
gonna
wouldn't
take
have
the
a
town
curb,
roads
you'd say.
over. We used to take roads over a lot.
Sure.
We don't do that much anymore, so. That's a legacy from, they don't wanna take over any more roads, so.
So this,
If I can also just add, I mean, so it's vague about what you can approve as a sidewalk, but it's also equally vague because the power is invested in you guys that you can approve an alternate facility, and there's no definition of alternate facility either way, so there's really no definition on either side.
well, and we have to have it on one side of the street. So in this zone, it says sidewalk one side of the street.
Put it on the other side, simple.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So,
No, and again,
It's-
like a concrete sidewalk, you're talking 700 feet, you're talking $30,000 bill. And again, it's really the municipal type
Yeah.
expense, should be.
Right.
If they want to put a sidewalk in their own right of way, they shouldn't really mandate that the owner has to put that kind of money in a sidewalk to nowhere.
So my thoughts are, we need to talk about this offline.
yeah.
This is coming up time and time again, and the town is doing us no favors.
Okay. So do we have enough? Well,
That just
Let me-
came up in the notes. of the-
any other specific
I
questions?
didn't want to talk about the transition from non-conforming to conforming. And the way I look at it is, I mean, we saw the permits where he did everything correctly at the
About
time.
transition.
Yeah.
That business has been in place for years, and so I don't see why we should be mandating that they transition to from non-conforming to conforming. It is what it is, it won't change, and it can't. So,
And maybe
I don't think we need to be,
For that type of language was brought in to encourage the long-term goal of conformity for this type of thing. Staff cannot, not to my knowledge, can inform applicants to unmoored or abate the non-conforming use suddenly within 2 years or anything like that. But staff's aspirational goal in long term is for the applicant to aim to transition that non-conforming use into conforming with the residential district.
I think the staff report did say recommends a transition.
Yeah.
We will take that recommendation into
Yes,
consideration.
it's more geared towards the applicant rather than the DRB's action.
I mean, perhaps what
Under
the
consideration.
DRB would
Right.
want, perhaps what the DRB would want to do is simply say, become no more non-conforming.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
Which, in some ways, putting a sidewalk up to it would make it more non-conforming. Because now you're saying, there's a business up here and here's a sidewalk to it.
Good point.
I mean, we wouldn't require that for a residence, and that's what they want it to be eventually, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rob, I have a question. You mentioned that the town's attorney weighed in on this.
Yes.
Where is that? That reason being, I think it's important that we protect the landowner or the applicant by including that document in this package.
That's something that staff can discuss and possibly provide it. When staff consults with the town attorney, we saw it as private counsel.
It's attorney-client privilege. It's a
Exactly.
product.
You just told us what it was. It's hearsay. I mean,
Yeah, but that's different from actually presenting the.
all right, so I recall the board asked that the town attorney weigh in. This was at the request of the board many months ago. And the attorney has done that, no. So we should see what the results of the attorney are, coming back to the board. This was a board request that we did to him, to them. That's correct. I would like to see the memo coming back from town attorney, the results of our inquiry. Okay?
In relation to,
Just, if you guys do have further discussions about the sidewalks, I don't know who you involve, but I do know in speaking with the Public Works, which is the water, the sewer, the highway, they would love to be able to add their input to you guys, just because they have failing water lines and they've got maintenance and they've got stormwater, and they often get left out of some of these discussions.
I think they should meet with the Pats Committee.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We need to go and talk to the planning commission and pass.
Yep, that would be.
We just deal with the rules.
are there any audience members who have any questions or comments to make on this matter?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. No. Anything else from? No questions. Okay, so then we are.
Continuance.
It sounds like it. So we continuing
Make a
to.
motion to continue application SUB 1704 to the next meeting, next available meeting. It's got to be date specific.
September 19th is possible, and also October 3rd.
What do we need between?
Are we continuing this?
I thought we were.
Excuse me, what is the purpose of the continuation?
Well, that's the other.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we're trying to.
Never
I'd
mind.
like to end
Forget
this
that.
soon.
Yeah, so wouldn't we, but are we, you guys have all the evidence you want? What about what about the attorney thing we're gonna keep internal?
I think we should.
Well, we need that memo, but do we need to continue, we need that to submit it as evidence?
No.
How does that work?
We would have to continue it to enter that into evidence.
Right, to enter it.
But we don't want to enter into evidence.
Yeah, the staff report says that your legal advice does exist, and that they
Right.
did that, and they concur with our
But
legal opinion also.
right, but that doesn't mean that we have to put it into evidence.
I want that in
because it's a
evidence.
work
If you don't wanna
product.
see it,
So
I want that in evidence. We asked for it.
Okay, then we have to.
The board
continue it.
asked for that.
doesn't mean it has to go into evidence. Say, but
It's protecting the landowner, the property owner, in case something comes up years from now. They can produce that as here's what happened at the
no, that's
DRB.
protecting us.
Well, both parties.
All right. So the purpose of continuing is because you want to see whatever the town attorney wrote on in relation to what? Because
To the
yeah,
question that we asked them about,
we asked them. I don't think I was here for this.
Yeah, good.
That was about a year ago,
it was a long time
a
ago.
long time ago.
It had to do
8
with
months ago.
their non-conforming usage of the property.
I think the best thing is
Okay.
drop.
We also need information about the sidewalks
But
or further
what
guidance.
do we need? What do we need? Something from the applicant
No?
on the
I think we're
sidewalk
good with the
question?
applicant.
Yeah, not with the sidewalks. We're good on their
No.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we're
really
good
on
on
our
their
end.
end.
We need to figure
Okay,
out.
so that's just a deliberation.
Okay.
thing then.
Yeah.
Then you're-
Unless we need more from Public Works people. I mean, do we need more from the town? No.
An
You're
answer,
gonna be able to tell us more
I know
than
that.
they told
I
us
don't know.
last time.
right.
That was the planning
Nothing.
commission.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Roy, this is a case where we as a board asked the town's attorney for an opinion, and it took forever, and here we are, holding things up, and we still don't have that document. I'm not blaming you, you're a new guy here, but to service the public, we need to have some expediency in this.
Okay, so we're continuing.
If you receive that in the short interim, I mean, are we done? Or are we coming back again to discuss
I
that you did
think-
receive that?
Well,
I think
If that's the only issue.
I mean, I still think we're
We-
stuck on the
the
sidewalks
sidewalks.
because
I know, but otherwise
That's
we
us,
could
though.
treat it like we did the one earlier where we closed it
Yeah.
and said we'll
okay.
issue
that's
it.
us.
It's all
Yeah.
about the memo.
Yeah.
Should the PAS committee meet with the superintendent of highway and the water department and the stormwater and then get back to you guys too? Because it seems like town staff isn't, I mean, I don't know who the PAS committee meets with to come up with these rules, But they, like Paul Goodrich is not in the loop on this.
I mean, I think where we're hung up on is the bylaw that states that we have to either have a path or sidewalk or an alternate facility, but an existing shoulder
does.
can't be an alternate facility. I mean, I think that's where we're hung up, right?
I mean, just a question, is there wording in the bylaws that says a widened shoulder can't be an alternate facility? So it's the paths committee saying, we want a wider shoulder, we want a wide
Planning
path.
commission saying,
Yeah,
that
but
wasn't
it-
the intention of the,
But if there's no definition saying you can't approve the shoulder, you could approve it.
Any definition.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why,
Until that's
Yeah.
written, you're
And does
saying we get to decide what the alternate is.
yeah.
so
our
we,
discretion.
what we need to do is meet to deliberate and decide what we think is the alternate facility, appropriate alternate facility.
Well,
think.
I
Is that
mean,
what it comes
I mean,
down
that's what we did with the previous application at Sketch, and then it got kicked back to us because we were told that we couldn't.
Yeah, and
Oh.
that's what's
Right.
frustrating. I mean, both of our applicants are.
Can you use a
Right.
microphone?
Sorry, that was part of the hard part, is that we left preliminary plan understanding that in lieu of a
Preliminary, sorry,
definition
yeah.
for an alternate facility and the path definition, that the benefit kind of goes to the applicant, and that David and the earlier application, Alan, would benefit from this alternate facility. If the zoning bylaws change and say an alternate facility can't constitute a widened shoulder, then that's a different kind of scenario for future applications. But right now, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, for what it's worth.
Right.
I mean, what it does say now is in the residential district, there has to be a concrete sidewalk with a curb on one side of the road. So,
In the
I don't
future,
know what we do with,
Yeah.
yeah. And in the future, maybe there will be on some of these roads, but until there's a plan and the funding to do that.
I think it's our best judgment.
Yeah.
Like your proposal, just widening it there, then I think that's up to us, our purview to say that's sufficient.
So,
yeah, we're not gonna get everybody together in a decision and a
No.
master
Yeah, we're
plan
not.
for
This is
like-
sidewalks
we're not.
anytime
No.
soon.
No,
It's
big
not-
deal.
Yeah.
Year,
2 years.
2 years.
Okay, so what do we do with this?
So,
So we got the memo from the lawyer. We don't need any, do we need any more evidence from the applicant?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think we have the
Okay with that? I'll retract my motion and I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
close.
Does that allow us
But-
to get the lawyer's
Of
memo
course it
in?
does. It just doesn't get made as part of the record of the hearing.
And to deliberate.
We can deliberate.
Okay, so you made a motion to close the record. We're all.
what's that?
Do you want that part of the record, so it agrees with your decision in the future?
All I want is their approval. I don't know how they got to it.
All right, fine,
So I'm going back to my motion to close.
okay.
With the added thing that
Okay,
we'll deliberate and issue our recommendations.
right, okay. Because I'm looking at these
Something
conditions.
like that.
Right. Okay, so we've,
All right.
Thank you
Yep.
again.
So-
Common sense
Let
prevails.
me make this, let me. Okay, I'm gonna reread this. I'm gonna make a motion to close with the indication of approval. And I'm not gonna, without any conditions, the conditions will be noted in our decision.
Second.
And I also make a motion to finalize the record as well. So
Second.
there's two motions there.
Second.
Second.
all those in favor of both motions?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, we appreciate your patience. Aye and nay?
That's okay. I don't want to finalize it. I want that big amount, but it's okay. I said my piece.
Okay, she'll turn to item number 8 on the agenda, which is application SUB 13-02R3. This is an application by Shelburne Green LLC seeking substantial changes to approvals previously issued for 120 Graham Way, parts formerly 6221 Shelburne Road. The scope of any decision today will be limited to the threshold question of whether the proposal meets the requirements of the Stowe Club Highlands doctrine. So, to start,
Good evening.
good evening. Let's sign you in. Is there anybody else here who will be talking to this? In which case, if you could all stand up and raise your right hands, swear everybody in together. Or anybody who's going to make comments or might make comments. Save time. Okay, everybody raise their right hands, and do you all hereby swear or affirm that the evidence that you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. And did everyone sign in, because we need to have a record of who's been here and talked to us. Excuse me, I got this pile of paper. Okay,
You all set?
I believe we are.
All right. So I just wanted to start just a couple of kind of quick matters, just to make sure the record's clear. DRB's, we're on the same page. Initially, we'd just like to note that Shelburne Green kind of disagrees that what we're here for tonight are substantial changes. We noted the agenda. Wanted that on the record. Furthermore, we've kind of, this has been noticed as a limited hearing just on a, what's been classified as a threshold issue by town staff. This was not a decision that Shelburne Green was participated in, and quite frankly feels that it's unnecessary to kind of bifurcate the process, that the actually merits of the application are an integral part of any legal determinations that the DRB may make. Any Stowe Club determination could be made while considering the preliminary plan application. We've submitted that plan, a lot of comprehensive evidence there, and so feels that the DRB can move forward on that. And to the extent, just one last thing, to the extent it is considered a threshold issue, we note that this was also raised at sketch plan. There's evidence submitted. There was multiple hearings. The DRB let the application proceed at that point. So to the extent there's a threshold question that prevents it from moving forward, I'd say that's already been decided. That's not to prevent the DRB from revisiting legal conclusions or anything like that. Just the fact that the application itself has not been heard, I'd say that that threshold issue has been resolved. So with that, nevertheless, we're here. And there's some information we're happy to provide. We're also happy to answer any questions. There's a lot of material that we received on Friday before the long weekend in there. So if the DRB has specific questions, we're happy to answer those or address those. But for now, I'd like to turn to Eves, who's got some.
Good evening. Do you need my name or anything like that?
Yeah, you should identify yourself.
So my name is Eves Bradley. I work with Pomerleau Real Estate, and I'm the broker for Shelburne Green. And I have two letters to read. One is from Matt Cohen, the proprietor of Fiddlehead, and one is from Graham Goldsmith, the owner of Shelburne Green, who could not be here. And we do have copies for you for your packet. So first from Matt Cohen. In 2011, I began the journey following my lifelong dream of opening a craft brewery in Vermont. I had modest plans and an even more modest budget, but New Year's Eve 2012, Fiddlehead Brewing Company was born. It was important that I locate the business in a community that we could call home, a community that we could be part of. I signed a lease at 6305 Shelburne Road for 3,000 square feet. I would use that space for manufacturing and a tasting room where customers could come experience our beers and purchase merchandise and beer to go. My business plan called for 500 barrels of beer production in the first year and eventually going to 5,000 barrels in year 5. I felt this would be a good size and it would take me some time to get there. Well, the reality was much different. We experienced immediate success and ended up producing 2,000 barrels year 1. Fast forward 3 years and we were completely out of space. I began looking around at spaces, but I felt it necessary to continue being in Shelburne. I was fortunate to be presented with space in the Shelburne Green complex. Not knowing the true potential of the brand I was building, I felt 10,000 square feet of additional manufacturing space was sufficient. As the years went on, the demand just kept increasing. By 2016, it became clear to me that the 10,000 square feet would no longer do. It was then that I approached Shelburne Green and inquired about more space. It's an amazing and dynamic industry that I'm part of. When I opened in 2012, there were approximately 3,500 breweries in the United States. Today, there are more than double that. The industry is experiencing tremendous growth, which is a good problem, but a problem nonetheless. To tell you I could accurately predict my company's growth when I opened would be a lie. We've been extremely successful and have always been a good neighbor and contributor to the community. I ask that you help us to continue to succeed and prosper in Shelburne. Thanks, Matt Cohen. And then from Graham. Dear DRB, thank you for hearing us tonight regarding the Shelburne Green project. I'm sorry that I'm not in attendance, but unfortunately had a prior conflict which I couldn't break. First, I'd like to reflect back that we endeavored to take on a very risky project when purchasing the old Barracrafter site back in 2011. The building was completely dilapidated and had some environmental challenges that we've now addressed. Many questioned the viability of this project, but despite the challenges, we got an approval from the town and began our work. The goal, given this zoning district, was to attract some office tenants and some industrial users that support local agriculture and to provide a plan for clean industry, jobs, and a tax base for the community, all in accordance with the Shelburne Town Plan. As the project evolved, the Governor of Vermont attended the opening of Eating Well magazine and in his speech commended the project for the reasons stated above. While initially the project has been successful, we now feel that our original approval for the project is being interpreted with little flexibility, and as a result, our forward momentum with tenants has come to a standstill and brought into question the future viability of the entire project. With all due respect to the town staff who are trying to do their jobs, we've become frustrated and discouraged at this point in time. Almost a year ago, we came back to the town to seek essentially two things: to change the hours of operation for the food service and to enlarge a building footprint from 20,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet, in accordance with the initial town approvals that provided for the building footprints to have some flexibility. In review, the project was permitted for industrial uses such as the existing Fiddlehead microbrewery, for a 2,500 square foot food service and up to 20% or 1,500 square feet per tenant space of accessory use, which includes a retail component. We're not asking for anything with regard to use that wasn't already permitted. The density and total square footage of the project is not changing, and the original approval recognized that there needed to be flexibility in terms of building sizes and location. With regards to the food service hours of operation, the initially approved hours of operation between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. have proven incompatible with market demand and the needs of the project. Despite our numerous efforts to locate a food service cafe tenant, no one could be convinced that they could operate in this remote location successfully with these restrictions. As a result, we're asking for 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. hours of operation, which will better serve the project as a whole, including visitors, while providing a simple light fare. With regard to the Stowe Club issue, I'm frankly surprised by the level of effort and the legal time spent to date towards suggesting that we should have anticipated that we were going to have a microbrewery here that would expand the way that it has. With all due respect, we had a vision, but could not have anticipated the specific market demands of unknown tenants, or that possible tenants would experience the dramatic growth that has occurred with Fiddlehead. With respect to Shelburne Green withdrawing its application about the food service hours of operation, we disagree as well. The reason we withdrew was because it was going to hold up the approval of the minor change of an 8-inch pipe going to a 10-inch pipe and the relocation of a fire hydrant. The added delay would have held up the project at a critical time and prevented a key tenant from moving in, but at no point did we suggest that we would not revisit the issue. At that point, we acknowledged the staff had a concern, but staff's recent letter incorrectly suggests that we had agreed with it. At this point, we want to move forward and work with the town staff and the DRB to continue our project in a viable and aesthetically pleasing way. Whenever the project has come up in conversation, people have complimented the design, the concept, and the use of the land in the Commerce and Industry South District. In order for the project to succeed, we need your help in fairly interpreting the uses and applying some reasonable common sense and flexibility to the approvals. Thank you. Very truly yours, J. Graham Goldsmith. Thanks.
Okay, so you're asking us to take those as evidence?
Yeah, I think we have, Peter has copies.
I mean, how do we feel about that? That they're not here in person?
Yes.
Are we, as a board, everybody's happy to just take the letters into evidence?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's evidence, then I am listing them as exhibits that Matt Cohen's letter is Exhibit A, and J. Graham Goldsmith's letter as Exhibit B.
You're asking because we don't have the chance to ask questions.
Yeah. Okay, just finish that. Yes.
Oh, very good.
We will
I'm Dave
do this
Marshall
now.
from Civil Engineering Associates.
Yeah.
Our firm was involved in the initial phase of Shelburne Green and thought would be useful to provide a little bit of context in regards to the original intent of the project, where it's been and where it has gone. The original project, as outlined in Graham Sr.'s letter, was basically a redevelopment of a prior industrial manufacturing facility. And ultimately, the second phase, which is the one we have before the board tonight, is one in which flexibility was really a primary component. The applicant was proposing a certain amount of square footage, different types of land uses within this particular area, but had no tenants. So it was obviously being done in a way that was speculative. There was no understanding of exactly who ultimately would occupy these particular spaces. And with regard to that, there were certain parameters that are put into place as far as total potential impact on the community. IED specifically regulated through the amount of square footage of buildings, which in turn was inferred a certain limited amount of traffic and water and sewer demands and things of that particular support services. The thing that struck me, and I think that was something both the applicant and the board worked together on, was that ultimately the 60,000 square feet of building was to be placed within a specific building footprint. A big one footprint, not 10 different ones, not 12, not 6, but one. And the idea there was that flexibility was inherent to both the needs of the success of the project and ultimately the demands ultimately of the tenants themselves, because they were going to need different sized buildings. And the applicant had put together a master plan on ultimately how the infrastructure would work, which kind of also shaped the way the buildings would be laid out within this building footprint, with the idea of, again, trying to control activities in a way that shielded it away from the neighborhoods. So there was a lot of master planning and thoughts that went into this, but at the same time, the need for flexibility as far as to respond to market needs as they move forward. It's one thing when you have one tenant and you know exactly what their needs are on day one. But when you have a project that is going to go 5 to 10 years in regards to ultimately its build out, and it's not a residential project. This is basically one that has many different tenants, many different types of land uses. It's one that ultimately does need that particular type of flexibility to reflect changing conditions over time. So that's a little bit of at least the framework I wanted to be able to provide to the board tonight with regard to the requests that currently are pending before the board, or will be, we hope to be. The character of them are with regard to at least the change in hours of the operation of the previously permitted food service, I think is fairly minor. It's worthy of a good discussion, but nonetheless, it's one that is fairly minor in nature. The buildings, as far as the request to go from what was originally proposed to be 20,000 maximum square feet to 30,000 square feet, I think is one that is a function of aesthetics, taken in context to what's happening around it. The smallest building at the Teddy Bear, which is next door, is 46,000 square feet. The biggest one, 126,000 square feet. So when we're talking about 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 square foot buildings, we're not trying to create megaliths. I think in regards to the applicant's original proposal to basically create something that masked the size of the buildings is a good goal. And I believe that they've worked towards that, even with the combination of 3 of the 10,000 square foot footprints to basically create a contiguous facility that would support this particular business that wants to stay in Shelburne and basically work from there. So I think things that we wanted to take out from at least my testimony before the board tonight is the background, where this particular project came from, what the intents of the need for flexibility was, And out of all that, again, the character of what's being requested before the board. Thank you.
No questions? Yep.
We know that there's been a kind of a lengthy legal memo that was submitted on Friday, so wanted to offer to answer any questions the board may have about that at this time. There's a lot of information there. There are a couple of things I'd like to point out. Just there's a lot of characterization and legal conclusions that are drawn that I don't necessarily agree with, Shelburne Green doesn't agree with, that aren't necessarily verbatim from the regulations or the permit conditions.
So are you talking about the memorandum from Ravi?
On August 30th, 2018?
Right.
Yes.
Just to be clear what you were,
Yes.
memo you're talking about.
Yep. And to give some examples, there's there's a lengthy discussion of what counts as an accessory use. There's a metric that this is on page 4. And on what qualifies as a restaurant versus a food service. Again, a food service is a allowed use in the permits. It's not defined in the regulations. A restaurant is. Those arguments I think have been presented to the DRB before. I think the main takeaway from a lot of this is that a lot of these issues seem to be going towards the merits of the application, whether there's certain aspects, whether what is being proposed meets certain regulations. There's a lot of interpretation of what those regulations require. But if tonight's truly limited to the Stowe Club Highlands doctrine about whether flexibility or finality should allow the permit to move forward to preliminary plan consideration, a lot of the legal and characterizations in there are unnecessary. But if the DRB has specific questions, we're happy to address those.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Total square footage, is that changing if you look at the overall footprint of everything?
No.
It's not? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I asked if total square footage was changing.
I'm Peter Raymond. I am an attorney. Yep.
Anybody else from the applicant, or that's everything? No? Okay. Because, I mean, what we're going to consider is whether, well, as you know, is one of these three conditions from the Stowe Club Highlands case, whether the situation falls into them. I'm not sure that we've really had much from you that helps, but maybe I'm missing something.
So could we expand upon that? So what exactly, is it just to determine if any of those Stowe Highlands conditions are met? If we say yes, then what? If we say no, then what?
So I think the point is that in order for us to continue the substance of the requested changes,
Okay.
the changes have to be allowed under these conditions.
Okay.
One of these conditions that was set out in Stowe Club Highlands must be met. In other words, they have to persuade us that, for example, the change that they're requesting, that it couldn't have been reasonably foreseeable at the time that they put these permit conditions in place, that they would need these changes.
Okay.
So given that, maybe if I could have you, I don't know if you penned this letter from Sheehy?
Sheehy. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So you were referencing another case, Burlington Waterfront Park Act of 250, which I found very interesting because I actually felt, well, maybe this is very applicable to this because, conditions were placed on something, and then the city of Burlington found that there would be benefit to the city of Burlington and the people in the community if the permit was amended to different kind of conditions. So I was just wondering if you could maybe elaborate on that case and how you think it's applicable.
Sure. So just to back up a little bit, the Stowe Club Highlands decision kind of came out of Act 250
Yep.
And land use permitting in general, and it was an intent to kind of balance both permit conditions and that reliance on those with flexibility, acknowledging that development is inherently unpredictable, and so there's got to be some flexibility there. So I think to say a rigid interpretation, it's got to meet one of these three. There's a lot of gray area in the Stowe Club Highlands doctrine. To speak to the Waterfront Park case specifically, that case, I think, while it is an Act 250 case, so there's a difference there. But the kind of the context is the same, and there it was some conditions were placed on the Waterfront Park for their, they have concerts and events, and so there's some sound and some hours, can't be over a certain sound level. Your hours of operation have to be limited. You can only have events a certain number of days. And over the years, the park became a much more central focus. There had been some more development there. And the interesting aspect in that case is there's evidence that people had actually bought their houses near the waterfront park relying on the conditions that the sound would be a certain level, that there wouldn't be very many events, that they would end at a certain time. And nevertheless, the court said, there's been changes. This is a focus of the city. There's a huge benefit to the city here. Therefore, on balance, the factors that favor flexibility here over finality. So again, I think the importance of that case is not necessarily the individual facts, but while those are important, it's really the court's approach that, hey, this isn't a rigid application of the factors. And in fact, the trial court's decision there said, you shouldn't apply this rigidly, and it should be a individually fact-specific determination. So,
In other words, if we felt, this is an analogy that this would be a good thing for Shelburne and the community, then flexibility is due.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's what. And there's also one of the aspects of the case that isn't in the three factors explicitly, but that it's also the intent of the conditions and whether the impact, what will be the impact of these changes. So if you go from a pristine field with no development around it and you put a Walmart there, suddenly those are huge impacts versus what we'd argue here is
if the square footages of the whole development is essentially the same and traffic is the same. It's just that kind of the, the configuration has been modified, but from the outside world, everything is the same, then flexibility is due.
and that's what we've offered in the letters. Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to just quickly note two other things. Going back to the memo that there's been some legal memos. There's also that August 30th memo. There's some conclusions there that I think are directed towards Stowe Club Highlands. But again, I think looking at the application materials and the evidence, those we disagree with those. And while some of them are still true, such as the aesthetically, the aspects of this project that I was speaking before, it is still designed to be a series of small, as Dave Marshall was talking, a series of, while it's one larger building, it's going to maintain that appearance of several smaller buildings. So that original intent of the PUD is not changing. To talk a little bit about the food service, there are several conclusions drawn there that I think are not borne out by the record. Shelburne Green had originally proposed a cafe, and again, as the letter from Graham Goldsmith had talked, this was an initial proposal. It was conditioned 6-6. The idea there being Shelburne Green had some other cafes that had been successful in other areas. It turns out that the facts here don't support, haven't been able to support a cafe with those hours. So, and the large manufacturing or the use that has now come into Fiddlehead, which used to be a 10,000 square foot and is now expanding, that has a shift work. So it's not only the traditional 9 to 5 workers that the cafe would also be serving, and it's also very complementary to that type of business and being accessory to the PUD as a whole. So while there were examples in the record of a 7 to 3 cafe being something that was used in other developments, I don't think Shelburne Green ever limited itself and represented that that would be what was used here. One other point, the shift in hours, there's a representation here that the shift in hours is only for the benefit of the cafe. I think as we've discussed, the shift in hours is actually to benefit the PUD and to accommodate, to fit the cafe with the PUD as it currently exists with the project, with the hours that they're seeing and with the market demands. Those are just some things. Any other questions from the DRB?
Good evening. Norman Stanislaus. I'm the property manager at Shelburne Green, and I'm also the contractor at Shelburne Green. I think there's a few things that I need to talk about to reassure the testimony, or I'm sorry, the letter that Graham Goldsmith wrote, and also the letter that Matt from Fiddlehead wrote. Number one, in early 2017, I was approached by Matt from Fiddlehead, and he said, Norm, we really need to get going with this expansion. And at that point, Matt had a total building size of 12,359 square feet, which based on the 20,000 square foot permit condition that the previous DRB had put on, that would allow Matt to expand an additional 8,641 square feet. So we negotiated from early 17, in honor about August of 2017. We reached a final LOI, which Matt felt he was comfortable with. And upon going in to execute the LOI, Matt looked across the table from me and he said, Norm, we have a problem. And of course, I was pretty nervous on what the problem is. And he said, it's a good problem. 20,000 square feet is not going to be enough space for us. We need to see if we can move forward in order to gain more square footage in order for my project and my manufacturing operation to be viable within the town of Shelburne. So that is when we started to put together our plan to come before the board on sketch and so on and so forth. And that's what we've done, and that's how we've ended up here today. That's a little bit of the history, and I had firsthand dealt with that with Matt from Fiddlehead, so I feel that I'm probably one of the best people to testify to the factual basis of how this came about. And clearly, this was not reasonably foreseeable for anybody's future, this amount of expansion for Fiddlehead Brewery. That's one thing. The second item is I wanted to talk about hours of operation. The older buildings in Shelburne, which was originally the Bearcrafters building that had been renovated, and also the newer tenants in Shelburne Green South, all of the leases for them facilities allow these folks to operate 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Now, I might also add at this point in time that Fiddlehead Brewery currently is operating 6 days a week, 24 hours per day. So then comes in, and that kind of brings in the hours of operation for a cafe. Then I had an opportunity to be involved in multiple different cafes having interest to locate on the site. And unfortunately, based on the hours of operation on the permit, they just did not feel it was viable because of being such a rural area. So then I had firsthand experience because the one of the original cafes that Graham Goldsmith Jr. had talked about originally in the original DRB meetings was a cafe in Williston, which I built, which my daughter currently owns today. And my daughter and I had lengthy discussions about her opening a cafe in Shelburne. And she said, Dad, you have to understand. She says, we have 400 people at Whitecaps Business Park. We capture about 10% of them people per day, which is 40. How do you think that that could actually survive without the outside business of the general public? Now, fortunately, my daughter has a very viable business at Whitecaps Business Park today. She's been there in excess of 8 years. And there's a great contribution from the business park itself, however, not enough to sustain the business operation. So she depends on business from the outside to help that, so on and so forth. And she said the problem with business from the outside in Shelburne is, she says, is number one is the limited hours, but she said we're talking about a very rural district versus Williston, which is surrounded by manufacturing and retailing and so many different types of businesses. So that allows her to operate between the hours of 6 in the morning and 3:30 in the afternoon, where she said, Dad, she said, I'd love to do it, but there's no way. The numbers just do not make sense. So I just felt that this is important for the board to hear a little bit about the history, in that we did, in good faith, try to move forward to see if we were able to bring a cafe in or food service that could operate within the parameters of the original decision. And unfortunately, we have found that at this point in time, there's nobody that's prepared to take that economic chance to do that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Doesn't a change like that, though, constitute a integral change in the nature of what you would be providing, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., changing to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
Well, based on the previous information provided to the DRB board during sketch, is this would be considered light fare, lunch and dinner.
Right. Which is very different than 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is arguable. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the applicant? Any specific questions from the board for the applicant before we move on to comments?
So moving the hours from 10 to 10 would potentially make the cafe viable?
Moving the hours from 10 to 10 would make the cafe viable and would allow Matt Cohen to move forward with his plan.
So talk about how it makes the cafe viable.
Basically, what the plan would, I believe the understanding is this, that unfortunately during the daytime hours, the amount of people within the PUD in a whole is minimal. Okay, we're not talking like Williston 400 people. We're talking 100 or less. Okay, so that's number one. So Matt's hope and intent is that number one, he would be able to bring people from the cafe more over towards the dinner hours, people that are working longer hours, longer shifts. Just like, for example, his business is currently operating 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. So that was and obviously be able to serve a portion of the general public.
Okay.
And because of the fact that, you know, the dinner hours, 6 p.m. is kind of an early cutoff for people finishing work and having time to go out and get their growlers filled and drop in and grab a light fare for dinner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anybody here from the public who would like to make a comment? Just to form an orderly line. Somebody needs to go first.
My name is David Stewart. I live at the Gables, which is an adjacent townhouse development to Shelburne Green.
And we
Can you hear
signed-
me?
Yeah, you signed, I mean, you were
I
sworn
signed in.
earlier.
I swore in.
Yep.
I'm good to go.
Yep.
I see some familiar faces, but I see some new faces on the DRB from last year. It's very hard to know where to start here because we've had two or three or four people from the developer speak. We've had a letter from Matt outlining his success, which is wonderful, and we don't want to necessarily appear to be in the position of being opposed to success. We have Graham outlining what he intended to do at Shelburne Green. And I think the real nexus of the issue here is whether or not this substantially changes the permit from what was approved originally. Light industrial, close up shop at 6 o'clock. It's also important, I believe, for you to know what the Gables is and how close it is to Shelburne Green. We are a 36-unit townhouse development. We are adjacent to Shelburne Green. We're very adjacent to where Fiddlehead hopes to locate its restaurant, which is on the far eastern part of the boundary of Shelburne Green, and we abut that part. We are a community of older people. I think at last count of the 36 owners, only 4 of them still work. So we're pre-retirement. Next stop is Wake Robin, generally speaking. And we have a few people who are going this year to Wake Robin. So I don't want to appear to be anti-Matt at all. He has a great success story. But the problem for us is that this changes the complexion of what we were at peace with substantially. There's already been a concert there. I was out of town on the weekend it happened, but I heard about it endlessly from the owners who lived on the West Wing, what we call the West Wing. It's the western part of our development that abuts completely the development. The developers are talking about the fact that they want to rearrange the space in the buildings. For us, that's not really the nexus of the issue. If they want to keep the square footage the same, but change the number of buildings, we don't really have a problem with that. We have a problem with the situs of Matt's restaurant and the entertainment factor that's going to be inevitably coming. Now, Eve has said that planning is a changing thing. In one of the meetings earlier, he said, planning is a changing thing, it evolves. So what happens when Matt wants to put in a 6-story hotel and a water slide or whatever? Are we supposed to just accept that? It seems to be that what they have done, what Shelburne Green has done, is basically operate on the premise that it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, because there are many changes that have occurred that are not in step with what the DRB approved 3 or 4 years ago. I'm sure some others want to add some comments. It's not the building sizes that's a problem. It's mainly the change in complexion of the development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Powell. I also live at the Gables. Dave and I are both board members. We have several other board members and a number of other residents here as well. We are all very concerned about this. I agree completely with what Dave said about the fact that we don't have an issue with the size of the buildings that Fiddlehead wants to have and put together. We congratulate Matt on what a fantastic job he's done. That's great for Shelburne as a town, too. But it's the change in hours which definitely changes a lot of the focus of what's there. I've read through a lot of these same things that you all have. You may understand some of them better than I do, but some of the points are, I know in one of the letters from one of Shelburne Green's lawyers, he said, quote, "The shifting the hours of the cafe is designed to correlate with the time the brewery experiences significant on-site business." The brewery is not the whole PUD. I don't know about the other businesses there exactly. I know some of what's there. And I wonder how many of them want that cafe / restaurant / whatever open past 6 o'clock. Are they going to be going and using it? Back when this was first before the DRB a number of years ago, when a number of us talked about it, and our liaison with them at that point was Graham Goldsmith Jr. We had any number of meetings. It was very cooperative, and things went along. This time around, we did meet once with Norm and Eve and trying to think who else was there. Yes, Matt, right. And they agreed to put in some more shrubs and trees and so on. They agreed to change the color of the buildings because they were not a color that really blended in. That's as far as it went. We've had no more contact. We haven't asked for contact, but neither have they. I remember very well at that meeting, Dave was there also, Matt said, because we were talking about this cafe idea, and he said, "I don't want to run a restaurant." That's a very direct quote, but it certainly seems like that's what it's turning into, particularly the fact that now it's let's see if we can attract the public. I fully understand the business piece that Norm talked about and his daughter's information about why those hours don't work. But the hours of up until 10 o'clock at night, backing right up to a number of our units, means there's going to be a change, a big change. Shelburne Green is maintaining that the shift in hours will not materially increase adverse impacts, but it will. It already has. We have one resident whose unit backs up closest to it, who recorded a concert that was there on August 4th, which we had been led to believe was not a purpose for the PUD to start with. But, and it wasn't only those people. We have some other residents who live farther away from and do not directly back up. They heard sufficient amount of noise. They got in their car and went out to find out where it was coming from and found that's where it was. If it's open till 10 o'clock at night and there are people coming, there's going to be more noise from crowds, cars, music, if that's allowed. There are going to be more lights from cars going in and out over there. As much as they will try to shield it, it's not going to happen completely. We know that. And what happens when the cafe closes at 10 o'clock at night? Who is patrolling and making sure that the patrons who have now been, so to speak, pushed out the door leave the premises? It can lead to a lot of different kinds of things. So it's the change in hours and this restaurant idea that really concerns us, not Matt's success and having a brewery. I think that's it. Thank you.
Hi, Elaine Lawrence, also at the Gables. Just a couple of points on what was already said. One was the fact that we compared this to what was done in Burlington at the waterfront, and the fact that that added to Burlington. I didn't hear anything that said that this was an attraction necessarily, or that was going to add to the town of Shelburne. And the other thing is that if people open restaurants all the time, if this restaurant that was given the permit and has operated was not able to make enough money, it was not originally intended to be a draw for the public. And so, maybe it's just not a good place for a restaurant. Right.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Ken Albert, live on Pearson Drive, also the proprietor of Shelburne Vineyard. And just by the way, I just want to thank everyone for having this meeting here tonight. My house is not air conditioned. We're across the street from Shelburne Green, and watched the phenomenon that's happened there. And I would think any town in the state of Vermont would die to have something like this. It's become a fantastic place. There's a a national food magazine there, headquartered. There's a restaurant, if you look at, sort of close by in Felino's. There's a brewery that's basically a phenomenon in the state of Vermont, and indeed regionally and maybe even nationally. There's a producer of cookies that are being sold in Whole Foods in different states. There's a tortilla manufacturer there. There's a distiller. It's a dream. Any town in Vermont would die for this. Any town, almost any place in the USA would die for it. I think we've got a very precious development there, and I think we have to treat it the way, accordingly. If you look at the regulations, and there I could see how they're bouncing up against the regulation. I forgot if it was on the Planning Commission or the Select Board when this regulation was drafted. I was part of the volunteer group like you are in those days, and it must have been 25, 30 years ago. I lost track of exactly when we did it. And I was working for IBM then. IBM had 8,000 people. GE had, I don't know how many thousand people. Simmons Precision had thousands of people. Those kinds of things have sort of dwindled. Some of them are still here. The IBM facility is still there. I think there's 3,000 people there, owned by a different company now. But the growth phenomenon in Vermont, and indeed all our future right now, is tied up in this craft enterprises, whether it's a beverage or a cookie or some other, it's some sort of craft food or something related to food. And that's what we have here. This was not at all what we had envisioned when we did this regulation. I noticed there's, I think, some sort of a regulation in there that no restaurant should be more than 200 feet back. Do you know why that was there? Does anyone know why that was there? We didn't want a McDonald's. And we carefully looked at the size of McDonald's, and McDonald's could not have lived with that kind of a dimension. We had nothing against restaurants. We were just afraid if we put the restaurant further back, it would develop into some sort of a cookie cutter suburban strip, which we definitely didn't want. What we have there now is something that's back from the road, I think architecturally quite sensitively done, especially considered they started with the old Barry Crafter's building, and I think made a relatively beautiful building about it. I remember walking into the Barry Crafter's building when it was still making cup hooks, and we're not doing that anymore. So it's an entirely different kind of application. There are some very stringent specifications in the current regulation, this, what is it called, commercial, what's the name of it? Is that one that we're talking here?
Commercial industry south.
Industry, okay, commercial industry south, about different kinds of ancillary uses. The kinds of businesses that are now surviving and providing jobs for all of us, or providing jobs for people that are supporting the taxes that are helping all of us, are these vertically integrated things. Like we across the street at Shelburne Vineyard, when we first approached the town to do it, they said, well, you're selling? You're doing this, you're doing that? Farms don't sell. I mean, we're a farm is what we are, but we're the only kind of farms that basically survive today in Vermont are vertically integrated, that basically go from grow to make to sell, such that you're not doing a commodity. I mean, the poor dairy farmers are struggling because they're selling at a commodity price. They're not vertically integrated. What Matt is doing, what the cookie people are doing, what the tortilla people are doing, what the distillery is doing, is they're vertically integrated. They're going from creation to packaging to selling. And to do that, they really need to welcome the public to that. And part of that component will probably and sometimes go to 10 o'clock at night. Is there a way, and I think there is, I think there's some design ways to ensure that the worst of the sound, or maybe almost all of the sound, is minimized by the right kind of architecture. But to pick apart this regulation and say, look, you can't do this, you can't do this. That regulation was a generation and a half ago. It's basically outmoded. If we want to have this precious commodity here, we've got to find some way to accommodate it. And also, by the way, also accommodate what the concerns are for the neighbors. And hopefully there are some ways that can be done. It seems like the town is acting, or the board is acting maybe like the police, and the applicant is acting against the wall of the police somehow. And is there a way between the board, the applicant, and the neighbors that a really focused effort takes place to solve this problem? I really believe the future of this particular development is really in the hands of this collective group here, and if it's fumbled, we could lose it, we could screw it up. So hopefully both sides can get together and figure out how to do this, not in infinite time, in some kind of a realistic time. I just spent most of the meeting here. I didn't listen to anything except this particular application because I was reading this 9-page, very nicely written document showing a history. Wow. And I could see you could take apart this, this doesn't meet this doesn't meet this. The regulation that's there, again, is a generation and a half old. The kinds of businesses which are, I think, infinitely more desirable than what would have been there under the manufacturing we envisioned, and would have been much more egregious to the neighbors, the kinds of manufacturing that would have gone on there. This is manufacturing of food, and it's not manufacturing of beef slaughterhouses. It's the most desirable kinds of food. So anyway, that's my take.
Thank you.
Just one thing to hopefully close things up a little bit.
Microphone.
I'm sorry,
Microphone.
Andy Marshall from Civil Engineering.
Microphone.
I think we had another.
Thank you, Robbie. There were some discussions
we'll
with
go-
regard to
We'll
the layout.
come back.
This is really testimony that really probably should be part of a regular DRB hearing, but nonetheless, I just wanted to basically bring the board members who weren't involved with the original approval up to speed with the orientation of the property. Specifically, what's highlighted here are the buildings as currently proposed, some of them constructed, some of them proposed in regards to this. The locations for the gables, they basically have 4 primary buildings that run along east of the project site itself. Interesting components of how your rules identify a separation distance between an industrial use and a residential use is they seek 150-foot setback 150 feet of nothing can go on as a buffer between one particular land use and another. In this particular case, the applicant has planted or retained existing trees between the existing and proposed buildings and the gables as part of the earlier negotiated understanding between the parties on how to try to keep the land uses compatible as much as possible. In this particular case, the gables buildings are about 450 feet away from the locations where a cafe could be located. In this particular case, one of the original conditions and negotiated components within the gables, from what I understand, was not to have that particular land use located down in the southeast corner, closest to the most southerly building. Right, you were part of that. So we're not talking about the cafe and the activities that the Gables residents are concerned about in the proximity or closest to the most southerly unit, but basically limited to the northerly end. And again, when we talk about that, one of the things I mentioned in the original testimony to you was with this horseshoe shape of the layout of the buildings, the intent was to create basically a cold edge on the backside of these particular buildings next to the gables. So it minimized the activity of these particular manufacturing uses. Very interesting. Norm mentioned that nothing says that they can't operate 24 hours a day. But in this particular case, the intent of the design was to basically maintain that buffering component by creating the activity on the west side of these buildings, again, buffered not only by the vegetation and the distance, but also by the very buildings themselves. So when we talk about noise and the concerns for noise, yes, I understand that concert is an outlier and obviously was not good. But putting that aside, there is standards in the zoning regulations as far as how anybody is to operate a business in regards to noise. So those are standards that have to be met. And as far as, again, those particular noise issues related to the residential use, those are standards that have to be met and are expected to be met. And if you're not met, they have to be stopped. So I just wanted to bring a little bit more context in regards to the discussion points that were brought forward by Mr. Stewart. He's been a very good neighbor and very good discussion person for the long time. He was involved initially with the discussions with the group when they were looking to develop the southern portion of the property. So he's brought some context as far as the background here. We have a couple of members of the board that were here originally, but again, we also have some new members that I wanted to help, again, bring a little bit of flavor or background understanding of the intent and how those particular issues were being addressed with regard to the activities associated with the cafe. Now the next question is the extra 4 hours going to change any of that? And I think there will be a point in time to have that particular type of discussion. But a lot of that was already designed into the project to keep those activities from 6 to 6 from impacting the neighbors.
Thank you. So there was a lady here who wanted to talk, I think.
You go ahead.
So I'd just like to make a couple of comments, if I may.
Yep, stand by. Oh.
You want me to?
You have
Is
to
that
have
better?
a microphone. Yeah.
Yes. The location of the restaurant is at the far eastern edge of this development. Fiddlehead's original building was down in here on Shelburne Road. And we probably would not have much of an objection to some situs down in this area because we would not be impacted by it. I don't know where all of you live, but when the Shelburne Museum has concerts, I hear them, and that's a half a mile away. And on some nights, I hear them pretty clearly. So, being 450 feet away, if Fiddlehead, and Eve says planning changes, so they could have a concert every Saturday, we're going to hear it. And it's going to be loud. And that's our concern. That's all I want to add.
sorry, I do have a couple of handicaps I can't stand without.
That's okay.
But
did we
I
swear
have
you in earlier?
I wasn't expecting
So can
that we could speak tonight.
Okay, can I swear you in then before you start? Because everybody who wants to make a comment on the record needs to be sworn in.
Yes.
Okay. So then, do you solemnly swear that or affirm that the evidence that you will give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. So,
My name is Nancy Hinsdale. I live at the Gables in the closest spot that I could. I don't mean I chose it for that reason. I've lived here for 18 years. And I was involved in all the early discussions before the first permit was given. And it was given with the final approval of all of the Gables people that had, and we were delighted that it was going to be a kind of a country look, little red buildings, and there'd be crafts and cooking and wonderful things going on. And as one of the last points we gave in on was the hours that a cafe could be open. It was first meant to be for people who worked in the area and came, possibly had breakfast and lunch, but in no way did we want to go even to 6 o'clock. And in the list of uses for that area that were in effect almost 5 years ago when this all started. One of them was no restaurants, no this, no that. And so giving in on the cafe and having to have food there was, but we thought, well, 6 o'clock, it'd be 7, maybe 8 or everything was cleaned up. I guess we could live with that. But we also knew it was supposed to be not more than 200 feet from the road. And so any noise or extra people who were not working there, but the public, could see it, come in if they wanted to, but they couldn't have a sign out saying. And so we thought things had been worked out pretty well. But now, since they're moving things around and making things bigger, heavier, I think the biggest problem with their plan has to do with drainage. The swamp that they make look like a little squiggle now goes full tilt right up to the fence, just a wire fence between us. And in the fall and winter, that whole area of swamp is dead cattails. The town used to burn them off, but when I asked about that, when I first came here, they said, we can't do it anymore because houses are too close. So for those of us who live on the edge, thinking about a restaurant, people going out for a smoke, and so forth, fire is my biggest worry. And I heard it, I didn't hear it mentioned once tonight. But the reason for the small buildings built up off the ground and the roads being gravel, all were to let the water percolate into the ground. And now they're covering it all with cement and combining buildings, the small ones and the whole plan from the beginning. I think they need to start over and not keep talking about what was permitted, because it never, all the maps that I had to get another one of the gables and measure and show. It isn't just 4 houses over there. And then there's another circle of houses and another circle of houses. This back line is the worst place they could have thought of to put Fiddlehead and Pizza together. The building that they had shown is touching the fence.
We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
The applicant want to address anything that's been said?
Yeah, just real briefly.
Briefly, yeah.
So a couple of issues that came up. There's some talk about a concert that happened.
Saturday, August 4th.
Okay, 2.
There was another one before that. It was July. Yes, that's the one I referred to. But the one on the 4th is
Okay. I mean, I don't think that the question of whether concerts were or weren't held is relevant to what we're actually supposed to be considering
Right, it just,
today. So
those are related
it's-
to the existing Fiddlehead business, and, yep. One of the point, there's, again, the issue of restaurant food service has come up. We're not proposing anything that's, the permit condition doesn't contemplate that there is a 2,500 square foot allowance for a food service. So that itself is not different. What was not reasonably foreseeable in this application is the fact that a 2,500 square foot food service could be reasonably foreseeable to have a market need and to serve the PUD from 10 to 10, that there'd be businesses there, that there'd be people there, and that there'd be a space and a host that could facilitate that. So at the time in 2014.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Is there a plan? Like, I mean, I know that I've asked this over and over of Matt, and you might not be able to address this. What's the food? What is the plan? Does he have a business plan? I mean, if we're talking about food service versus restaurant and things being foreseeable, not foreseeable, is there a plan? Or is that not something we need to?
I think strictly, again, it's probably not something that
Okay.
we're looking at today, because they're trying to show us that the request for
Okay.
the change meets the threshold.
Okay.
But I agree, it's something that we have asked about and should be addressed, assuming that they get over
Yeah, I
this
think
hurdle.
as the application moves forward, those information, there's been a lot of things raised here that go to meeting the zoning requirements, not necessarily the Stowe Club. And last point, the change here is not that it's open to the public, that it's not open to the public. This is always contemplated as having a component of both, that it would serve the PUD, that there'd be people coming from the PUD. As Graham Goldsmith Jr. said there was one reason they like to actually locate it closer to Shelburne Road, because so that it would have exposure. And so there's been a discussion that this is for both. So that is not a change that is called for here.
Okay, so your position, you're representing that initially it was contemplated that the food service would be open to the public?
Yes.
Is that-
Yeah. The concern about hours, the only restriction in the permit is currently on the hours of the food service. The PUD itself, the businesses didn't have any hour restrictions. So now that's the foreseeability part that we've addressed tonight, is the shift in hours. It wasn't foreseeable to have that need to address the businesses in the PUD. But the fact that it's open to the public, it's not a change that's unusual from the permit.
Okay. Any other questions arising?
I was just curious about, I know you mentioned Fiddlehead operates 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you have any, I'm just curious about the other businesses in the PUD, what their hours of operation are?
Their leases allow them to operate whenever they want. What their current hours of operation are,
Do they?
I don't know.
Okay. It just seems like that would be helpful for us to understand how much of the hours are serving the PUD versus the public.
I don't know that.
Our mission today, our mission today is to understand the applicability of the Stowe Club Highlands. So,
Right.
to me, comes down to those three criteria, and
Yeah.
as something develops such that we could say it wasn't foreseeable. For example, as Ken was talking about, well, we all know the business climate has changed throughout Chittenden County, Vermont, and the country. And so that really might not have been foreseeable as this was planned. And so I think that's what we have to get to is, are we at that point where we say, we think
they've shown.
that's applicable?
But I think we probably need to deliberate unless everybody has a clear idea already.
Deliberation would be helpful for all of us.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't even have anything.
To the extent that the DRB feels that additional information on the actual application is required for its analysis, we're happy to present on our application if the DRB wants to reserve ruling on the Stowe Club Highlands. If this was warned as a separate issue, to the extent that certain compliance with zoning regulations or certain aspects of the project, which we were under the understanding we weren't presenting tonight,
Right.
to the extent that's necessary, we're happy to do that.
Okay. Yeah, go on.
Let's speak to the foreseeability a little bit, because that seems to be on people's minds. And I think that's a relevant point. And the point is that it was unforeseen that Matt would be as successful as he is.
Yeah.
I grant you that. But what he's done is built his brewery next to our development, when the whole area he could have put it anywhere. He could have put it down on Route 7. And that wouldn't have been a problem, because his original building is on Route 7. We had no objection to that. So what they did is they built and then asked for permission. That's what I see. So it was unforeseen that he would be successful. It's just he's already gone ahead and done it. And I don't think you should operate that way.
I agree. One short tack on to what Dave said, which is that, again, having Fiddlehead there is not the biggest thing for us. They are there, they're there, they've been, it's okay. They got permission to get in there. But the idea is that happened, then they push it for good business reasons to be bigger. Then the next thing was there was going to be this cafe, except now it seems to be getting a little bit bigger. and the hours are getting way extended. It feels, at least to us who live at the Gables, and I suspect some of the other people who live in the nearby neighborhoods, but perhaps do not directly abut Shelburne Green's land, they get permission to do one thing, then they push it a little farther, and then they push it a little farther, and
So
a little farther. And those are the pieces that aren't so necessarily good for the community. We have a fair number of restaurants in Shelburne that some of those folks could go to if they need to. And I think the question that you asked, I think it was you, Jeff, who pointed out, or no, well, Jeff, you're both Jeff. One or the other. Yeah, we have several Anns at the tables too. About whether there are other businesses there, at least at this time, who are interested in having food service beyond what the allowed hours are at this point.
Right.
So I think it's all basically for one business.
So you're saying that it's time for some finality rather
I'm sorry,
than,
I can't-
you're saying that you need, it's, the emphasis should be on the finality of the permits rather than flexibility.
That is what I'm saying, yes. I don't get the decision, but. Yeah, this is,
Okay.
to me, seems substantial changes.
Okay. All right, so while the board does, oh, sorry.
May I add one?
Okay, I mean, yeah.
I would be very quick. So I'm Diane McCarthy. I'm also an attorney for Shelburne Green. I was involved earlier on, and Peter's been here more recently.
Okay, did you swear in earlier?
Yes, I did. Okay.
Stand close to the microphone.
Sure. So I just want to, I think there's been a little bit of confusion going on as to the purpose of tonight's meeting. And I think that Shelburne Green's representatives are very happy to continue conversations with the Gables people. I think the reason that hasn't happened in the interim is we haven't actually been able to have our preliminary plan application heard or even set up to be heard. So we actually don't have something right now to be having discussions with them on. We very much do want to do so.
Okay.
We are
That's
open to
something-
that, and I think there's been a lot of talk about what the project would be, but our purpose today, we understood.
Was limited.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And certainly you could, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, so
the question of whether
absolutely,
you talk is
we will
not
be
really for
reaching
us.
out again. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, yes,
I was sworn in earlier.
okay.
My name is Jane Knowlton, and I live in the Gables with my mother. And I just want to say quickly, my brother's in commercial real estate, and he reaches out to his clients and the community that he's in Ohio. And he's very concerned about neighbors. I haven't heard neighbors really mentioned until the last speaker and before. But what I have heard over time a lot with this issue is very nebulous phrasing, you know, intent or assumed or, you know, unexpected. And I really just want to add from the neighbor's perspective that it's really important that their concerns and their goodwill be taken into consideration, because I haven't heard those concerns addressed, and I think it's important to just make that point.
Okay, yep, thank you. All right, so the DRB does need time to deliberate, so then we continue for deliberation? Or we close the record on this specific matter and issue a decision?
Let me think. So,
And then-
yeah, so,
This was just the applicability, so I would think we could close it
Yeah.
and issue a decision.
from, yeah.
So then
Yeah,
I'll
you
make,
can close the hearing and then open for deliberation, from my understanding.
okay,
That's,
sorry?
Yeah, so we have to just pass the judgment.
yeah, you just have to pass,
Yeah.
you
That's
just have
fine.
to
Good.
have a vote
Yep.
for,
So,
to
but
close the
we're good.
hearing.
Right, so I will make a motion to close the hearing and we will issue our decision
Yep.
in writing.
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was just gonna ask maybe if you could maybe summarize for the neighbors here what this really means, that by closing the hearings, well.
Okay. So today we have been here essentially to only consider the question of whether the requested changes to the permits meet the threshold that's required by this case called the Stowe Highlands, whatever it is, Stowe Club Highlands. And that's what we were receiving evidence on, testimony about today. So we are going to make a decision on that in writing. And if we find that, depending on what that decision is, depends on how the matter goes forward, I suppose. It's that. Like we might we might say, no, they haven't met the threshold, therefore we don't allow the changes and they will have to submit their preliminary plan application without the changes to the permits. Or if we find they have met the threshold, then they can proceed with their preliminary plan application with those changes that they've asked for. Comments?
So basically, you have another chance.
Right.
We'll be back.
Yeah. 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 But we appreciate everybody coming, and we will endeavor to come to a decision in a timely manner.
We appreciate your service. Okay. Serving on that board is very kind.
Thank you. It happens. It's always. Is there any other business that we have to turn to?
Pictures. Are you trying to open a deliberative session at the moment, or are you?
I think that we will probably not right now.
Okay.
So, what are you trying to do?
Move on to the next item on the agenda.
Awesome.
Yeah, can I close the meeting and then, because the town attorney is here in case we want to talk.
Yes. Yes. I believe so, yes.
Okay, so there's no other business, I assume I'd just ask.
There's the picture issue. I tell you, I'm
Okay,
never
go on
gonna look
then.
better than I am right now, so. We're gonna do this, let's do it now. I know.
Who has
I did get my
camera?
hair colored yesterday.
You're good, you're good.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.